Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy and Frames pregame show. We are here to prepare you for week 7, discuss all of your fantasy relevant players, offense, and IDP, plus your start sits. Let's get it. Oh, yes. It is week 7, halfway through the fantasy football season. And boy, oh boy, it feels like deja vu all over again. It is bye-mageddon. 6 teams on bye: Cincinnati, Dallas, Tennessee, the Jets, Carolina, and Houston. I am your host, Fantasy J77, over there on Twitter. I am joined today by our faithful Minister of Defense at Mr. Nate Markham. Sorry, not Mr. Nate Markham, at Nate Markham over there on Twitter. Our CEO, Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter. And surprise, surprise, somebody all the way from Hollywood Titan. How are you doing this morning? It's bright, it's early, you're looking good.
Yeah. Yeah, at least I look good.
Guys, we got week 7 right now, starting at 1 o'clock. There is no London game today. Thankfully, no London game, so we won't be talking about that. Jorge, how was your week this week?
Not bad. Just really looking forward to not having to scramble at 7:30, 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday to fill in lineups with potential players who are overseas. So that was nice. But no, excited to be here and get you all ready for week 7.
Nate, how was your week?
Yeah, good. Very similar, like Jorge said. Really appreciate not scrambling, feeling like I want to watch a game and still, entertain, talk to you guys. But I hate to say this, I'm relieved that the noon games are, for lack of better words, underwhelming, where I can maybe focus on just one game or two instead of bouncing from game to game. And then the afternoon slate of games are action-packed. So it's like that slow kind of burn. You go into the, I'm going to say the 6 or 7 beer hour, which is, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then really set back and watch some of the better games.
What is up, JR Vap? What's up? Glad you are joining us this morning. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Hollywood, this is your first time this year on the pregame. Are you awake enough to do this?
We'll see.
Well, let's dive right in then. We got Vegas favored by 2.5 at Chicago, over under of 37. Nate, who is out of this game?
Yeah, the Bears, the right guard, Nate Davis, is out. Not sure if that's a bad or a good thing for the Bears. He hasn't exactly been a stop, a stopgap for the pass rush to get to Justin Fields, which would have been Justin Fields, but Justin Fields is out as well. And in the secondary, Eddie Jackson did not return this week. The news at running back was that Roshan was supposed to have been recovered from this concussion, which just goes to show you that nobody has really any clue about concussion return dates or prognosis, because here was a long week last week, didn't make it back. This week, didn't practice, so he's out. And on the Vegas side, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo. So both quarterbacks, and then the slot corner for Vegas, Nate Hobbs, which from an IDP standpoint, especially in cornerback leagues, is a pretty big loss.
Yeah, I got to give it up to the NFL. They finally got this one right. With the 6 teams on bye, there's 12 total games. So there's 6 1 o'clock games, 6 4 o'clock games, or 6 later games. The thing that I'm mad about is this should have been a Monday night game. This should have been the Monday night game, standalone, Tyson Badgett versus Brian Hoyer.
You're right.
This is the classic NFL Monday night game, right, Jorge?
If this is what the classic Monday night game is, then I'm very scared for the status of the NFL. This is a surprise Tuesday night game that just happened to go on unexpectedly and phased out quickly.
So what you're saying is this is a Maction game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Going all the way down to the
Yeah.
Mac. That's-
This is a WB game. This is the
WB.
game on the, or
or the CW. No.
the seat, whatever it's called now. Exactly. That's no, it's the WB.
It's the
Long
one
gone that no
one-
one airs anymore. No one has to watch.
Well, with that being said, you got these two not elite quarterbacks, but you do have two what we think are elite wide receivers. Which wide receiver does it affect more? Is it DJ Moore? Is it Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers? I mean, which one does it affect more, Jorge?
So I was on the Club Fantasy Start
It's
show
Whoa,
yesterday.
hey.
And Joe Zolo brought up a very good point, who's a diehard Pats fan, that as soon as Brian Hoyer entered the game last week, you stopped seeing target volume heading Jacoby Myers' way as well as Michael Mayer's way, and he kind of just zeroed in on Devontae Adams. Flash forward a few days later, Devontae Adams is complaining about not getting the ball enough. He's not about being a team player, but padding his stats, basically, is what he said. So it makes you wonder whether the whole, squeaky wheel gets the grease thing comes into play. I think so. Therefore, for the Raiders, I think this could be a very heavy Devontae Adams game. But you look in last week when Badgen came in, DJ Moore was pretty much the hyper-focused target there. So for half PPR, full PPR, I think that's the bigger upside play.
Real quick question: did you listen to the Devontae Adams interview in its entirety?
No, why?
Either did I. And I took the same thing that I had read from every snippet that he said those things, and it's not true. They pick and chose segments of his interview to make it sound like he said that he was not dedicated to the team and that he was about padding his stats. What he said is, in essence, is we all need to be better. And yes, that will come, I am a focal part of making this offense be better. And if I can't perform, the offense won't run as well as it should. And that's on me. So I only say that not to call you out or say, but this is the problem with media, right? Because I said the same thing. I said the exact same thing you did on a different program, on a different article. And now I want to go back and retract everything I said because it throws Devontae Adams under the bus. The narrative is still there. Squeaky wheel in the fact that sometimes it's a positive. Good press or bad press is still press. And him getting traction is there. So I think that's a good thing for Devontae Adams. Like you said, he is a squeaky wheel, but he's also the most talented player on the field. And I think that's why I also eliminated his name from that question as a whole, because I thought, well, Devontae Adams is quarterback proof as far as I'm concerned. But DJ Moore kind of is too. That's, in his career, for the most part, he hasn't had anybody special.
Yep. And I did see a snippet where the Raiders came out and said they are not going to trade Adams.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know if that was part of that conversation or if somebody had said that they should or whatnot, but they are not going to do that. Now, with that being said, unless there's a great offer, I don't know that there's going to be one of those out there, but he is not going anywhere. Hollywood, with Roshan ruled out, is Deontay Foreman a solid matchup, RB flex or an RB2 area?
I think so. As a flex, he's with what the options are probably available to you. I would say he's a pretty good option for you.
Yeah, with the bye weeks of not having
Right.
Breece Hall, not having Miles Sanders, not having Chuba Hubbard, Dameon Pierce, that sort of thing. So you're going to go ahead and plug him into that flex area as well. All right, let's talk some IDP stuff there, Nate. Talk to me about this IDP side of this ball. What players are we definitely putting in this game? And then I'll let you guys go around the frame. How you guys want to go with Hollywood, Jorge. Let's talk about this IDP side of this game. Vegas -2.5 at Chicago.
Yeah, Vegas doesn't have much in the way of pass rush. So as far as like edge rushers or any pressure getting put onto Chicago, Max Crosby is about the only one that I'm even looking at. And that kind of goes along with the Deontay Foreman thing. This is I like Foreman a lot in this matchup, but I worry that he could even start to be removed from this because, little fun fact, he is the third worst pass blocking running back in the NFL in terms of pressures allowed. That is in 2 games. So if there's a way to be concerned or a reason, I want to ask you this, Hollywood, and maybe you don't know, or maybe it's hard to say. Is Darrington Evans a good pass blocking running back?
From what I've seen, no. I mean, he's okay, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't put him up there as far as being a top notch or even, a really good one. I mean, he's probably better than rookies or something like that. But
well, the only reason I ask that is because that's one of the areas that I think, tend to overlook sometimes is that when you're limited in running backs, if you're the running back and you allow a person like Tyson Bagent to get blasted and they have someone like Darrington Evans who can fill in, to get the hook real quick wouldn't be shocking and or surprising. So I want to pay attention to that going forward and see if they don't try to get, they're going to get Roschon back as fast as possible. But that being said, the IDP side, which after Max Crosby, honestly, for Vegas, the only other person I'm even considering this week is Robert Spillane, maybe Divine Diablo, but Diablo's snap has been up and down. He'd go from 85% down to like 70%, up to 90, down to 72. And so it's been a little inconsistent. And I don't know if either offense with a 37-point over under will be moving the ball and anything exciting for multiple players outside of those two. Jorge, what do you think for the Bears side?
I would like to throw in Trayvon Moehrig, who has actually been dominating box snaps pretty heavily for the Raiders this season. And if we're going by Fantasy Pros, IDP scoring has been giving you double-digit points this week. So if you're in a deeper league where you have to start 3 defensive backs, that could be a sneaky DB3 that could give you DB2 value. Not necessarily DB1, but again, the consistency, bye week situation, 7 teams on a bye, you never know. Switching over, speaking of box snaps, somebody who a couple of weeks ago, we just haven't seen the performance. We hadn't seen the box snaps where they should be, was Jaquan Brisker. But recently, over the past 3 weeks, we've seen an uptick in box snaps there. Obviously, you have TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds. Those 3, I still think, could pay dividends in this matchup, which should be a highly contested, I think it's going to be a running game matchup personally. And I think they're going to try to take Josh Jacobs out of the rushing attempt game. Now we all know how he can compensate for being a receiving running back. But those would be the 3 defensive players for the Bears that I'm interested in.
Hollywood, anything else to add defensively for this game?
No. I will mention it now for some of these other games. If you're playing like player prop bets for sacks, you might want to go ahead and get those now because Crosby's already jumped from a quarter to 3/4 of a sack. So I just put one in on Hutchison and Danielle Hunter and a couple others. So I expect those to be changing too. So you better not wait. Go do it now.
All right, we'll move on to the next one, and it is Cleveland favored by 3.5 at Indianapolis, over under of 40.5. Nate, who's out?
Yeah, linebacker for Cleveland, Sion Takitaki, is going to be out. I don't know what the effect's going to be necessarily. We'll talk about IDP in a second, but with the snaps being wonky at best for Anthony Walker Jr. and JOK, having one less body out there is important. And then for Indianapolis, not much. I mean, offensive lineman Braden Smith and then Kylan Granson at tight end. It's a relatively healthy matchup because the people who had been hurt are, not returning.
Well, I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to retract what I said last week because I was not in on this Cleveland Browns defense, and they showed out last week against a pretty powerful offense in San Francisco. I don't know that they, are the best, but they did show up and shut down a very, very good San Francisco offense. Deshaun Watson looks like he's going to be back. Don't know if he's going to play or not, but he had a full practice. Jorge, is he streamable this week? I mean, I guess he is because, well, we got 6 teams on bye. But are you plugging him in as a starter this week?
So I have him as a QB 16, so currently ranked. So yeah, I guess if I'm hurting at the quarterback position, or I chose to go down the streaming option and target other players in my draft or during free agency, I would start him. I'm actually I want to give Preston Evans here at Fantasy and Frames a shout out here for this analysis on Elijah Moore, who the Colts are giving up 243 passing yards, which ranks him 23rd against the pass. Moore has had a 78.9% snap share. That could be a sneaky play this week for Deshaun Watson if Deshaun Watson ends up coming back and playing at full strength, whatever that means.
Now, you brought up Preston's article. Where can the good people go find that?
You can, I think you can find it at fantasyandframes.com.
Yes, that's plug it the whole thing, Jorge. Don't just plug half of it. Plug the
Well,
whole
thing. You said Nate said, so then I was confused as to why you said that.
My bad. Hollywood, how deep does your league have to be for you to start Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, pretty deep, I would think. I mean, it would have to be pretty deep, or I'd have to have some serious injury issues, with what I have on my roster. So,
what do you feel like? He adds value to Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman through the passing game?
Maybe a little. I don't know that it changes a whole lot, really. Because it wouldn't matter if it was Richardson or Minshew back there. Cleveland is going to be, Garrett and those boys are going to be on them all day. So
I guess that's fair. I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but you bring up Captain Obvious over here that they got to play a defense that is actually pretty good. Nate, Jerome Ford took it to San Francisco last week. RB 22 overall. Is there upside for him this week?
Yeah, he did. He looked actually really good against San Francisco last week, especially towards late in the game when San Francisco made the push to take the lead back, or at least were fighting for that lead. And they relied and trusted in Jerome Ford, and he made people miss, looked good after the first contact. I was never really, really high on Jerome Ford, but now with Kareem Hunt kind of banged up more so than not, and I don't know what the news. I know they came out this morning and said that I think they said they weren't optimistic about Kareem Hunt. I'll have to go back and look at that, exactly what Schefter said. It was really early, but you eliminate that. And Cleveland, let's be honest, even with Deshaun Watson back, they're last in the league in passing. So I mean, they've averaged 180 yards passing per game. So I mean, they're not exactly an option that I'm too worried about in the air. And a good forecast is if your defense can stop the opposing team, just run the ball and control the clock. And so I like it. And Indy's not, they've given up the 10th most points to opposing running backs. So yeah, I have Jerome Ford currently as my RB 15. So yeah.
Can you start? I mean, I guess you have to start Jonathan Taylor, but can you start anybody else on the Colts side of the ball against this Cleveland D, Jorge?
Oh, well, if we're not having faith in Gardner Minshew, then you kind of have to put your eggs in one basket with the running game. I don't think they phase out Zach Moss just yet. Look what he did last week. I'm not convinced they're just going to hand the keys over to Jonathan Taylor this week, given the matchup. I think the dynamics between the two running backs, the different skill sets, the different things they bring to the table, they're going to have to get creative in how they utilize these two running backs. So I would say Zach Moss is still a play. I'm very curious. Josh Downs, we've been seeing his ascension the past few weeks. I think Cleveland will do a good job taking away Michael Pittman. So it makes you wonder whether or not they're going to kind of compensate with that Cleveland pass rush and kind of dump the ball off to Josh Downs in the middle of the field, in which case the PPR upside could be a little bit higher than usual.
Yeah, the reason I ask about it is, Cleveland's only allowed 54 first downs this year. The next closest team is my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they've allowed 94. So, running against the team, and you look back at last week, and yes, I know Christian McCaffrey got hurt, but he only had like 50 yards.
And he's Christian McCaffrey.
And he's Christian McCaffrey. He's not, he's not some slum off the streets. But we'll get to a couple of these questions. Start one. Is it Pittman? Is it London? Or is it Palmer? Let's start with you, Hollywood.
Oof. Man, I think I go with London here.
Against Tampa.
Yeah, I like the matchup. Palmer, I like too, but he's got the better quarterback. But with Keenan Allen and crew there, that makes it a little tight for me on that. I think I'd rather have London.
Nate, you on that same train?
Yeah, it's closer because guess where Josh Palmer's best games have ever come? Against the Chiefs.
Exactly.
I mean, 200. I think touchdowns and at least the last two of the last three, if I'm not mistaken. But we've seen. I want to lean London, and Atlanta over the last two games, if you look as far as, their first in pass attempts, third in pass completions, we'll get to that game shortly, and hyperinflate just how much they've relied on the passing game. Question against Tampa is, can you feel comfortable doing that? But I'm still going to trust. I think London's the better. I think London's the better option right now. It's tough, man. Malcolm, sorry.
Jorge, you're going with London as well?
Yeah, it's really Desmond Ridder dependent. Say what you will about him from a real football perspective. Look, 300 back-to-back 300-yard games, 37 passing attempts, 47 last week. Like they're not really afraid. It's crazy. Like it's almost like Arthur Smith is like, let's throw the ball and see what happens. And regardless of how poorly he may or may not do, we're still going to throw the ball. And you're seeing a different production in Bijan. You're seeing an uptick in production in Kyle Pitts and Drake London. So yeah, I'll go London in this matchup.
And the next question is from Nathan. Good morning. Which two wide receivers should I start? Nate, this is a standard league. Zay Flowers, Rice, Jacoby Myers, Deontay Johnson, or Christian Watson. Real quick, is Deontay Johnson off of the IR? Did that happen? Okay, I missed that. All right, so which two in a standard league? Zay Flowers, excuse me, Rashid Rice, Jacoby Myers, Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson. Let's start with you, Jorge.
Man, I kind of want to go Rice and Watson. I really think this could be a big game for Rashid Rice, given the fact that they're going against the Chargers, and this should be a pretty fun, exciting offensive game. And Patrick Mahomes has been slowly giving Rice the seal of approval. I think Johnson first came back, you don't know. Brian Hoyer, Jacoby Myers, you don't know. Zay Flowers. We're talking standard, not PPR upside. So that kind of leaves Christian Watson with the deep ball, getting the yardage. And I think also with Rashid Rice with the yards after the catch would be my two options.
Yeah, Nate, Rashid Rice looks like he's going to be or could be that number one in that Chiefs offense, at least somebody that Patrick Mahomes can rely on outside of Kelsey with his, targets kind of, Mahomes, like Zach said on Tuesday, Mahomes is that guy that can throw you 6 targets one week and then forget all about you the following week, whereas Rice just seems to keep getting those 4 to 5 targets every single week and capitalizing on those. Is Rice somebody that you were or would you be starting Rice over Myers, Deontay, Christian Watson, Zay Flowers in a standard?
I probably wouldn't start him over Zay. I'd probably go Zay and Watson. I would like to start Rashid Rice. I really would, but I think the one thing is that if, no offense to us, but if Jorge, myself, you are all thinking that if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm going to scheme away Rashid Rice to try to not beat us, then Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will look a different direction as much as any team. I don't know if they will. I still worry about at the end of the day, the highest route participation he's had all season is 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still not in there enough for me to feel like I'll take Zay Flowers 98% over Rashid Rice's 50%, even
Fair.
If he doesn't have quite the Zay doesn't quite have the yak and the touchdown upside as much as Rashee Rice may possess.
And Hollywood in this one right here.
Yeah, I love Zay Flowers, but I think the right play is Rice and Watson as well. Watson's got the big play upside, which, if you're playing in big play leagues where the touchdowns are longer touchdowns are more points, then that's the appeal with him. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to starting Flowers though.
Yeah, before I get to this comment, I just want to remind everybody, if you're over on Twitter or on Facebook, come over to the YouTube side, join us in the conversation, ask your questions, your start sits, if you've got trade questions, any of those, or you just want to give Hollywood grief for waking up this early in the morning and not drinking a beer, go right ahead. You can do that. Mike Evans or
you say
D.
that like they're not right here. You say that.
No, I know they're right there. That's not the. They're all behind you and next to you, and they are always within arm's reach. Mike Evans or DK in a full PPR, Nate?
I don't like the reports that I've seen of DK this week. He was hurt in last week's game. I'm just going to lean, and that's not to what. That's a 3:00 game. What time's Tampa game?
1:00.
So I'm going to go with Evans. I'm not going to risk it.
Hollywood.
Evans.
Yeah.
Evans.
And yeah, I think I'm going to go with Evans as well. Not only because he's a buck, but you look at what he is getting on average about 9 targets a game. So Baker Mayfield loves YOLO ball. So let's go there. Jorge, you good with that?
Yep. Mike Evans.
Tight end question: Raiders, Meyer or Green Bay, Luke Musgrave? Jorge.
I think I'll go with Musgrave in this matchup here. I like Michael Mayer. I like the uptick in target percentage. I don't like Brian Hoyer. So if this was Jimmy Garoppolo behind center, I would easily say Michael Mayer, given the increase in volume. But it's not. So give me Luke Musgrave.
Yeah, it's Luke Musgrave for me as well, going up against Denver. Nate, you good with that?
Yeah, I am. But I do want to watch their, the volume funneled to the tight end, just see, because Mayer could be, definitely a hold for you, Malcolm, going forward, because it went from 5% in the first couple games tight end targets as a whole to now it's upwards of 30%. So, they're focusing more on tight end at least. So it's a positive.
Well, that's mainly due to, if it was a one drive game, like the first drive was the only drive of the game, then Michael Mayer is a valid play. It wasn't until last week where they actually started using him through the whole game.
Right.
So there is, that's the question is, can they figure out how to get him the ball throughout the whole game and not just the first drive or first quarter? Mm-hmm. So Hollywood, would you start Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers both this week against the Bears?
No. Like we've talked about earlier, quarterback is dictating all this. So no, I would just go straight Adams and look for another option over Myers if I could.
Yeah, I'm with that. Nate, you good with that?
Yeah, I would like to know who the other options would be, I guess.
True.
Yeah, but still, no. But I'm right there with you, Hollywood.
Well,
it's
let me throw one at you. If it was Jacoby Myers or Deontay Johnson.
Well, Deontay Johnson, we had to go with the waiver option because let's not try to guess what his bench would look like. Let's try to say that if he has to stream somebody, would there be a streamable option you would go with, Gator?
Rashee Rice.
He's not. You think he's available on the team's overweight?
I mean, he's a rookie. He's probably only. Let me guess. He is. Not guess, but let me look it right quick and see where he is.
Here's one. Here I got one for you guys. How this is gross. How Elijah Moore?
Yeah, should go get Meyer over Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
Gator, how about Wan'Dale Robinson against the Commanders?
If it's Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah. I mean, is Daniel Jones really that much better?
Yeah, I was going to say. And St. Juice has actually been a pretty good slot corner, so I'd be kind of concerned about that Wan'Dale matchup as well.
All right, let's dive back into the Cleveland Indy game, and let's talk. That's where we're at? Yeah. Okay. The most rushing yards allowed by Cleveland was to a single back was Joe Mixon in week 1, and that's 56. Do you think that is there a outside of Zach Moss? Is there a touchdown upside getting Zach Moss, or for running backs in general? Is there a touchdown upside for either JT or Zach Moss?
Man, Cleveland's so good.
There's a yardage upside. I don't know whether or not I think there's an in between the 20s upside. My concern is when they get into red zone territory and goal line situations that can they actually punch it in?
I have this problem because I've got JT in a couple leagues, and I'm scared to start him. Scared to start him against this Cleveland D after I talked so bad about the Cleveland D last week. And and then they just go up there and make Christian McCaffrey look like a normal human being and not Superman.
Well, that's kind of something, though, for Mageddon weeks like this, you have to realize, like, who else would you be putting in their place that has that upside? Given 7 teams are on the bye, 7 running backs are unavailable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I do. Unfortunately. All right, let's talk IDP. Jorge, I'll give you the Cleveland side since this is such the vaunted D right here. So I'll give you the Cleveland side. Everybody else can take a break. We'll be back at 10.
I won't need that long. I promise you. So obviously you're starting Myles Garrett. I want to look back at OGOK's production lately. 2.5 sacks, nothing really great there. Myles Garrett, probably for me. Let me see where I have Grant Delpit ranked at. That would be a defensive back for those who are unaware. Scrolling. I have him at 21, so that could be a potential DB2 play. But those would be it. This whole linebacker situation for Cleveland just has not worked for years, so I'm not exactly excited to start anybody at the linebacking position there.
Hollywood, talk to us about the Indy side of the ball.
Yeah, so they're without Grover Stewart, who's been suspended, so I think that hurts them a little bit. I think as far as linebackers, of course, you're going to play Franklin. Leonard, I don't know. He's kind of been hit or miss, right? So I guess you kind of got to go with it. For me, in a couple of leagues, I've started EJ Speed over Leonard because I have them both, and that's kind of where I went. I think they're both kind of similar, but if you can get, I don't know, if they get the same, then you're getting an upside with Speed, and you're kind of regressing with Leonard. So I kind of look at it that way. And then you've got Quiddy Pay and DeForest Buckner maybe up front. I don't know that I would bank on them getting a sack, but I don't know that I would touch those guys either. I think I would look at the 3 linebackers and really just the 2, Franklin and Speed.
All right, Nate, wrap up the IDP side of the ball, Cleveland at Indy.
I need to touch on most everything. Like I said, the things to monitor in this game would be Hollywood just touched on Quiddy Pay and maybe Samson Ebukam, just because Cleveland allows the 10th most sacks. So, I mean, one of those guys, maybe the upside could be there. But
yeah, I forgot about Ebukam. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, neither one of them are really great plays. They're just sack dependent. And like JOK with the Taki news I alluded to earlier, if I could trust that he would have the snaps or Anthony Walker would guarantee, I would love the option to go against this Indianapolis team that I think will stay centered and short ADOT and just overall play, yards per play. But I don't trust it. Even with Taki out, JOK still only could muster 75%. So not the biggest thing there, just in general for really either of those two, him or Anthony Walker.
We will move over to the Buffalo Bills, favored by 7.5 at the New England Patriots. 40 points is the over-under. Woof, this game could get ugly quick. Who's out today, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a saving grace for New England is that Damian Harris is out, which is not really much of anything. More of I shouldn't joke about a person with concussion, but yeah, Damian Harris being out. And then Big Ed Oliver being out is big news, just because from the defensive side, it gives New England at least a little more of a fighting chance. But then unfortunately on the New England side, Riley Reef is out. Josh Uche, Keon White. So pretty much every pass rusher that they've ever had on their team that's of quality is gone.
Before I go too deep into this game, real quick, Malcolm has he has to drop either Jordan Mason or Josh Palmer to fill in for a kicker. For me, it's Jordan Mason that you're cutting. That's a Monday night game.
For sure.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
All right. Going back over to the Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. Excuse me. Josh Allen has absolutely owned the Patriots in his career. This could be a long day or a very, very short day for Mac Jones. I don't think that this is a viable option, but again, I'm going to ask the question just because there's so many teams on bye. In any league, would you be going and getting Malik Cunningham? It looks like he's been moved up. Now he's going to be number 2 on that depth chart. Is there any viable option to place Malik Cunningham on your roster, Nate?
No.
Okay.
I can't think of any.
Okay. Yeah, real simple. How do you see anybody on the Patriots side of the ball that you are starting, Jorge? Outside of Ramondre?
God, and I know if David Ibrahim was here, we probably got to shoot him the link. You have seen an uptick. You have seen an uptick in Zeke usage, but not to the point where I feel comfortable even flexing him. Man, that's no outside of Ramondre, not really. You mentioned Josh Allen has dominated the Patriots. Let's take away that playoff game a couple seasons ago. There have been 2 instances where he's scored 20 points or more, and there have been 2 instances where he's given you 11 points and 17 points. So I'm not saying don't start Josh Allen. Obviously, I'm not saying he's not going to have the potential for a big week, but don't be surprised if they kind of limit some of his options there. But that's why I don't have him in my top 5. But I was kind of surprised when I saw that. So it's going to be interesting what they do this week.
The Patriots should look to run the ball, so it should be a Ramondre game. The Bills allow the second most yards. Unfortunately, the Patriots are 28th with about 3.4 yards per attempt. Mm-hmm. Nate, is this a Ramondre game?
I mean, I wanted to believe a couple weeks back that it's a good Ramondre at buy low type option going forward because the passing usage should improve. And we've seen no viable targets for New England. We've seen his, he's running enough routes, anywhere from 50 to 70% of the routes. And his targets last week, we finally saw it. Finally saw a 20% target share. It's not what I'm expecting. Give me 12 to 15, and you'll have an RB2 kind of at minimum for him. And so that's what I expect to see. I expect them to try to run the ball. They haven't been 3.5 yards per clip against, Buffalo. Without it, Oliver does give them that option, but I'm hoping that just his pure volume alone. And if Dave was here and he would talk about Zeke, like Jorge alluded to, and I would say, it's not going to be Zeke. And then he would get mad at me because I would slander his Zeke love. And Zeke has outscored Ramondre in PPR scoring, despite all the hyperbole weeks and how bad Ramondre's been. He's outscored him one time, if I'm not mistaken. And that was probably touchdown dependent.
I was going to say that was with a touchdown, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Is James Cook a must start? And is Latavius Murray a flex option? The reason I ask this is the Patriots have allowed 5 rushing touchdowns. Murray is 5th in the NFL with 7 attempts inside the 5. Hollywood.
I think Cook is a must start, and I think Murray I think he's a solid flex play just because of the touchdown opportunities that he can get, short yardage. So it's not ideal, but if you're kind of like, again, it seems like it's going to be the thing, 5 weeks or maybe even injuries has hit you, you could do a lot worse than Murray, right? So I like them both.
Jorge, Diggs is a must start. But is there any other pass catcher on the Bills side of the ball that is a must start? And here's why I asked this: is the Patriots have not allowed a 100-yard receiving game yet this season.
Gabe Davis is a must start. Like, what has he not done this season that gives you reason for pause? Like, even against tough matchups, he still produced. Josh Allen still looked his way, even with deep ball passes. So I'm not scared about starting Gabe Davis.
No, I can't argue that. I can't argue it. All right, let's talk IDP side of this one. I'll let you start, Jorge, and I'll let you pick which IDP side you want to talk about. And I know it's not going to be the Patriots.
Man, so Kyle Duggar for sure, I'll start with him. So Kyle Duggar is a must start at defensive back. Nate, you and I on Shoot the Gap, we had this good discussion about Jelani Tavai, whether or not there's going to be some shifting in role in coverage versus him staying inside. If he does stay inside, last week he did, put up a good solo to assist ratio, and at least he has been the past couple of weeks putting up good solo to assist ratios there in like a deep IDP league. I don't know. I would be tempted to start him, but definitely not in must start territory. That pretty much for me wraps up the New England Patriots from an IDP perspective.
Hollywood, go right ahead.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, Barmore's not in the best of health. Uche's out. I mean, maybe if you're in a super deep league and want to throw a dart, Jennings might be worth a throw, but even still, I think I would stay away from him.
I would also say Jabril Peppers is also somebody who, along with Kyle Duggar, has been pretty high in box snaps, and you all saw the hit, right? The jacked up hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was so beautiful against Devonta Adams last week. That reminded me of that old ESPN segment where they're like, "You got jacked up." I literally screamed that out loud when I saw that hit. But player safety first, of course. We want the hit. We don't want the after effects.
Okay.
There you go.
don't take 25 million a year if you're not willing to take the after effects.
This is true.
So find a different. I don't. My job, if they said an after effect was, you could have injury, bodily injury, but you will make 500,000 times the amount you make. That's on me to decide if I want to take that risk or not.
Not to mention,
that's probably a area we don't want to go down.
No, I let's go down it for a second. Like, I think people need to start realizing, especially like in the fantasy football community, because everybody's just so anti people getting hurt because they want their players to be on their roster. And it's like, this is supposed to be a violent game. People are supposed to hit you hard and you're going to feel it and you may get knocked out. And like, football is not designed to be just about fantasy football and keeping. I want them to catch the ball, but not and to get tackle to the crowd, but not tackle too hard that they're not going to be able to. Like, no, like you don't get that. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Folks.
We have that sport. It's called flag football. Go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now that is now an Olympic sport.
Olympics, love it.
Yeah.
Love
so if you get a chance to listen to Move the Sticks, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, they have on one of their more recent episodes, they build their ultimate flag football team for the Olympics. Go out and give it a listen. And I would love to have the conversation about us building our own fantasy football team. Keep in mind, it's not going to incorporate a ton of true, X's and O's as much as it's just going to be elite playmakers, speed. I mean, it's going to be, it's Tyreek and go down the line. But yeah, give that a listen for sure. It's well worth it.
That sounds really good. Nate, while we're on this real quick, wrap up this game with the Bills at the Patriots. Anybody that wasn't brought up already or something you want to highlight?
Offensively, no. I think we've touched on everybody. I don't want to disagree with the Gabe Davis because I know that I'll burn me in the butt, but he is definitely boomer bust. But in a situation where there's 7 teams on bye, you have to take that risk because the bust is last week, less than a point. The boom is 25. So that's it's too hard not to take that side. And I don't want Billy Mustafa coming at me and, you know what I mean, when I tell him Gabe Davis is a bad pick and he's still, he was wide receiver, 40. And That was better than wide receiver 41 and down. So congratulations. But needless to say, that is not me slandering going after Buffalo. On the IDP side, I don't know if you guys have mentioned, I kind of did Taron Johnson get brought up?
No.
Okay, because I think that is, he's one of my starts of the week. I love the matchup. New England targets the slot corner or the slot receiver more as much. I think they're second. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. In the NFL. And Taron Johnson, just last week we saw 15 tackle upside for a guy who is constantly around the ball. Especially if you get a switch from Mac Jones, then we're talking, pressured throws. It could get ugly. I just like Taron Johnson to go along with Terrell Bernard. And then in a pinch, Dorian Williams is apparently the LB2 there. So we got to pay attention to that. And then the rotation, Jorge mentioned on Shoot the Gap, AJ Epinesa is one of his sits. And that goes a lot to do with the rotation of, Hollywood. Oh, you act surprised. Were you there to come back? No, I'm kidding. Just giving you shit. Let's move on. He had his handkerchief he touched his cleavage. AJ Epinesa.
Let's grab a couple of these questions right here. Malcolm asked, running back, is Cook or Ford in a flex? Nate.
I like Ford, but I think let me go by my rankings in because I don't want to give, because I will say I was gonna say Cook immediately, but I think I have Cook one spot ahead of Ford, so I guess I'll go with Cook.
I think I like Ford though.
I'm right. Hey, one spot is apart. I can totally agree with both sides of that.
All right, break the tie, Jorge.
Yeah, I have Cook ahead of Ford also, so really close here. But give me Cook.
Here, real quick. I'm sorry. If Kareem Hunt is ruled out, I might switch those two. But I think I'm still going to stay Cook, so that with initial thought, if you put it in now.
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah.
Yep. And per Adam Schefter, Kareem Hunt is a game time decision. So, good morning, guys. Buda Baker is reportedly back this week and will play against Seattle. How do you feel about him this week? Debating between him and Greenlaw. Let's start with you, Hollywood.
I don't know. I think you kind of got to start him, but I think I would temper expectations, right away coming back. I think it's going to take him a week or two. So
would you start?
And I say that like Nate says, I say that, and he'll have 10 tackles and 2 sacks and whatever. But I would be okay starting. Just temper your expectations for a week or two.
Nate.
Well, the question then is, is it Greenlaw over Buda? And I'm going to say yes. I would go with Greenlaw, but man, he's been questionable all week. I hate to see a re-aggravation of something and him and Greenlaw not play snaps. At least with Buda, you can assume he's going to play with no Jalen Thompson, no Antonio Winfield. Or is it? No, Antonio Hamilton. Sorry.
No.
I'm losing my mind real quick. So I still think I'd want to go Greenlaw. I think the upside for Greenlaw is higher right now than it is with Buda.
And Jorge.
Yeah, I actually kind of see this being closer than I think a lot think. If Minnesota actually had some semblance of a power running game, then I would totally be Team Greenlaw. If I knew for a fact that they were going to, I kind of do, that they were going to emphasize TJ Hawkinson, who I believe when you're looking at wide receivers and tight ends for the Vikings has had close to a 20% target share right behind Justin Jefferson before Jefferson got hurt. That would have favored Greenlaw in coverage. Buda Baker, what does that do to Kayvon Wallace? I guess is kind of the big question there. So I guess I would roll with Greenlaw in this aspect.
Good morning, Morris.
So to piggyback off this, Greenlaw or Ernest Jones, because they're both questionable.
Jones.
Yeah, Jones for me.
So you're not scared about the knee?
I was scared last week, and Jones put up 11 tackles.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm still a little concerned, but he alleviated some of those with production.
Cool.
Good morning, Mars Flow. He has a question here. Is it Zach Evans or is it Curtis Samuel in a flex PPR? If you missed the Adam Scheffler report this morning, I'm sorry, it wasn't Adam Scheffler. It was Rap Sheet. It reported this morning that Zach Evans is actually third on that depth chart in the running back room behind Royce Freeman and Darnell Henderson, if I'm not mistaken. Washington.
No, Darrell Henderson.
Henderson.
Yeah, Henderson. So for me, it's Curtis Samuel, especially with what the last few weeks have been in that Washington offense for him. I want Jorge to answer this, but I want to get him last because I don't want his fandom to interfere. I think going around, it's all going to be Curtis Samuel, but Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, if Evans wasn't third, like you said, because I saw that same thing. If he wasn't third, then I would maybe lean to him a little bit, or it'd be a lot closer. So I think Samuel is definitely the play.
Nate.
Yeah. Would any of us be shocked if this is a McVay subterfuge and they end up starting Zach Evans for 20 carries? I don't think anybody's going to be blown away by that. But yeah, Curtis Samuel, and Jorge said this last week going into it, is that Curtis Samuel's the second in line as far as like upside target, upside play, and overall, playmaker on that team behind Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the defense or the offense of not being able to protect Sam Howell long enough to get to that third and fourth read and get to Dotson. But Jorge, are you starting Samuel over Zach Evans this week?
Yes, I am.
Very, very quick and easy. He did not let his fandom come into that. I appreciate that, Jorge. Is it Kyle Pitts or is it Jonnu Smith as a start, Jorge?
Kyle Pitts. I'm back on board Kyle Pitts. I think we've seen the uptick. Again, Desmond Ridder throwing the ball more, targeting Kyle Pitts more. Jonnu's starting to see a dip in his target volume. So give me Kyle Pitts in this matchup.
Nate?
Yep, for the exact same reasons.
And Hollywood.
I'll go Pitts, but it's closer than what people think, I believe, for now.
Yeah, I think there is especially with the amount of teams that are on bye, there is a play, and I'm actually doing this in one league to play both of them. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at it, Jonnu Smith is averaging about 12 points. Perfect in my flex for him. Kyle Pitts is averaging about 12 points. Mm-hmm. They're both very viable, especially in a bye week that we have this bye getting right now. All right, moving over to the next game. It is Green Bay favored by 1.5 at Denver. Who is out of the game? Nate.
Yeah, this one, as far as like upside big names to wait, hold on. Who did you say? Which game are you doing?
I think Green Bay. Far down the search.
Did I? Oh my goodness, I am way down on this. Oh my!
I was like Green Bay didn't. I was like, I thought maybe I was later, but that's okay.
Literally had one job, Gator.
I know. I listen. I was trying to skip this game altogether, and it's Washington favored by 3.5 at the Giants. Over under of 37.5. My bad.
That's fine. No, you're good, man. Not that I shouldn't be able to pivot from a game to game and talk about who's out for that, but yeah, the Washington and the Giants, not exactly the best game at a 37.5 over under, but luckily there's not as many like offensive players out, playmakers, because there's not a lot of offensive playmakers on either team to be out. But needless to say, offensive line though is a problem, and the Giants specifically. Evan Neal didn't practice, probably not trending in the right direction. Andrew Thomas is out. John Michael Schmitz is out. Matt Pert is out. They have two offensive linemen. Justin Pugh, if you saw that in last week's game where he was off the couch. Did you guys see that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I mean that explains a lot. And he actually, yeah. So pretty much the entire offensive line of value for the Giants, and really nothing on the Commanders side.
All right. The Daniel Jones is considered to be a long shot to start the game, so it looks like it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. The Giants have gone 3 straight games without an offensive touchdown. Hollywood, can they match the 08 Browns and make it 4 straight games with no offensive touchdown?
Yes, absolutely.
Woof.
Hurrah.
0, as far as Hollywood's concerned, 0 touchdown upside for the Giants, which means the Commanders will probably win, 9-3, 9-6? Is that where you're going with that, Hollywood?
Front line for Washington is just going to be on them all game. I mean, wow. So that's how I got rid of it.
I listen. I have tricks. We listen. We can do tricks.
I should have led with that from the starter.
Yeah.
Good Lord. There's not a lot to talk about in this game. Listen, Jorge, I'll give you the floor. Talk about your Commanders. Who are you starting offensively for the Commanders against this? I mean, the Giants D is just ugh.
One thing.
Go ahead.
DraftKings, you can still get Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, all at a quarter sack right now. It's still there. Chase Young is up to 3/4, but you can even get Thibodeau at a quarter sack. So,
wow.
If you don't do it now, it's fixing to change. That's why I wanted to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I give you $20 right now, Hollywood, to make that bet and parlay all 4 of those?
Yeah.
At where they're at right now.
Sure.
Seriously. Yeah, I'll take half sacks for each one of those guys.
Yep.
Sure.
Put it in right now. Yeah, Hollywood, or you do that. Take care of my degenerate side. Jorge, intrigue my educated side and enlighten me with fantasy football knowledge.
Look, Terry McLaurin is unguardable. The man is unguardable, of course. And Gator, you just said the Giants defense. Woof.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, more reason to be more positive about Washington. McLaurin, we talked about Samuel and his flex upside. Brian Robinson, is also a viable option there. I'm staying away from the tight end situation there with Logan Thomas and Cole Turner. I really wish Cole Turner would be emphasized more, but that's just my Dynasty Fantasy Football bias coming into play. And honestly, Sam Howell. What has Sam Howell done that for fantasy that people need to be super concerned about, except for that Buffalo Bills game? I think he's a viable starting option for anybody this week.
Nate, in what looks to be a positive game script,
Mm-hmm.
what's the ceiling for Brian Robinson? I mean, he's 2.6 yards per carry.
That's my concern. I mean, volume is the positive game. I mean, that's the ceiling is a volume play, and I'm not real thrilled with a super high, RB1 week. I mean, I think I have him firmly as a as an RB2. He's right below Jerome Ford and James Cook in my rankings. But I don't know. I just can't get super excited about him. But if you have him, awesome time to have a matchup against the Giants.
Hollywood, can McLaurin eclipse 100 yards? I mean, he's done it 3 of 6 games this year. The Giants have allowed 80. Wait, his season high is 86. I'm sorry, right?
What's that?
For McLaurin, you have on here they can the Giants or can McLaurin get the 100-yard receiving mark?
Yeah. So he's done. So in 6 games against the Giants, Terry McLaurin's gone over 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So far this season, he hasn't eclipsed 100 yards yet. His season high is 86. Is this the matchup where he can get over that 100-yard mark? That's the question.
Hollywood.
I'm going to say no. I think he'll get close, but I'm going to caution on the lower side.
What do you think, Nate? Does he get to that 100-yard mark?
I do. I think he's going to be. I think that's what they're going to realize. Is I think that Brian Robinson's going to be ineffective on the ground. They're going to switch to an area that they're going to pepper. I think they're going to pepper him with targets. I think he'll take advantage, and I think he'll break one off. We've seen that trend, at least from what I've seen, and I don't watch as much as close to the Commanders as Jorge does, but it sure seems like each week McLaurin gets closer and closer in terms of like his routes. He finally eclipsed 90% last week. Targets per route run was over 40%. Granted, I'm not expecting a 55% target share like we saw last week, but we're going to see, I think, somewhere between 25 and 35% this week, which should mean 100 yards. Might take.
Wan'Dale Robinson has 20 plus targets over the past 3 games. Washington's the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Is he more than just a flex play in this game, Jorge?
I don't like the matchup against Benjamin St. Juste. It's a flex play. I'm not even confident there. I know that, with Tyrod last week, he led the team in targets. In a full PPR, God, and this is why I hate full PPR, because you can get all these fantasy points for just catching the damn ball, but with minimal yardage. So from a half PPR and below standpoint, I'm not excited.
Very, very fair. All right, I want to leave this game for IDP purposes last for Jorge. I want him to bring it all together. So I'm going to start with you, Hollywood. Give me the IDP side of the ball for the Giants. Who are we starting?
Oof. Micah McFadden, right? Yeah, I think he's definitely one. I think I'd be okay with starting Thibodeau. I think there's some upside to be had there. After the Xavier McKinney, I still don't trust him, right? So I don't know that I would say he's a must start. So
okay,
corners are a dime a dozen. You can pick up corners anywhere. So other than McFadden and Thibodeau, that's probably the only 2 that I would say, yeah, you're starting.
Bobby Okereke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot him. Sorry.
All right, Nate, wrap up that one there with the Washington side of the ball.
I thought we were going to let Jorge do Washington.
I guess we'll let Jorge do Washington.
This will bring him joy.
This will bring him joy.
Hard. Oh.
Look at that smile. You say Washington and Jorge gets that little twinkle in his eye and he starts smiling.
You know it. So starting
say Chase Young's name.
Well, it's fine. I was going to start at defensive back. Well, let's start up front. You talk about Chase Young and Pugh moving to the outside, but there's a chance that he goes back at guard. The Giants brought in several practice squad players, a former Giant, Tyree Phillips, who played left tackle for them last season, although very limited, who would be going up against Chase Young, who, he's got 24 total pressures over the past 4 games, which leads the NFL. Although be it 2 sacks, which you're kind of hoping for upside there, which you're going to get if he's going against practice squad guys. Then you have obviously Montez Sweat on the other side. Both of these guys can get after the quarterback and get you, sack production as well as, quarterback hit and tackle for a loss upside. And then, of course, you got Cody Barton. I like Jamin Davis. He's slowly but surely climbing up rankings for me. And then Cam Curl is a must-start at defensive back.
Now, you think that I was just talking shit on Chase Young, but in my start-sit column this week, I have Chase Young and Kayvon Thibodeau. Both are my top 2 starts at defensive line this week because, like you said, if it's Pugh, if it's Mark Glowinski, now you talked about Tyree Phillips, who this is the funny thing that I see a lot of Commanders fans talking about and Eagles fans alike. He gets released by the Commanders, goes to the Eagles practice squad, picks up tips from the best offensive line coach in football, and then comes back to the Commanders to use it, in their own division. Cheaters. So very, very savvy play by Tyree Phillips and company.
I think that was all set up. That was all set up by Riverboat Ron. Here's what I would like to do in this game here, because Sam Howell has been hit more than any other quarterback in the whole league. Is there one guy from the Giants that is absolutely getting a sack this week, Jorge?
Nate mentioned it. Kayvon Thibodeau probably has the best chance there. You look back at the performance in Washington last year, which came after that tie that they first had in the Meadowlands, or at MetLife Stadium, excuse me. Thibodeau had, I think, a sack, touchdown, tackle for. So, you look at the offensive line situation, it's just not great at tackle for the Commanders this season. So, yeah, Thibodeau would be the guy there.
Nate, you were good with that, or you got somebody else in mind?
Nobody that I trust. I mean, the Giants as a whole, if I'm not mistaken, have 5 sacks total. Yeah, they have 5 sacks total on the season. So I don't trust any one particular person because Washington's allowed 34. So it's like, which is it going to be? Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence? Do I think that they could blitz? And we've seen that in that defensive scheme is that it's a blitz heavy scheme. It wouldn't shock me if Micah McFadden gets a sack. And I just, maybe Jason Pinnock, all these are maybes. And I just don't trust any one specific person, but we'll see somebody and it will elevate their IDP floor this week. And we'll talk about it next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just looked at Pinnock because that was going to be mine. He does not have a sack on the season right now, but he is truly a boomer bust guy. I have him on a couple teams. So, Hollywood, you good with it just being Kayvon Thibodeau?
Yes, because like Nate said, they only have 5 sacks, and Thibodeau has 4 of those. So, and again, currently on DraftKings, over a quarter of a sack today. So, it kind of plays into it if you're betting, and that's kind of what we're doing. You're gambling on who's going to do what. Even in fantasy, it's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's with what Washington gives up. The sure shot would probably be Thibodeau. I think for anybody else, it's just kind of a long shot, right? But for him, I think there's some viable option there.
We will move on to the next game, and it's probably going to be the game of the day at the 1:00 hour. It is the Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa is favored by 2.5 with an over-under of a vaunting 37 points. Nothing to note as far as people that are out. So I will start with Jorge. Desmond Ridder, QB1 last week, even though he threw 3 interceptions. This week he gets Tampa Bay. That blitzes 41% of the time. Ridder under pressure only has a 52% completion rate. Can he even enter the QB1 talk this week?
How many QB1 weeks does Desmond Ridder have this season?
He had 1 last week. That's what matters.
1. So do I think it's a QB1 discussion, even though there are 7 teams on the bye? No, I don't think.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Is there with the amount of teams on bye, can he enter the QB1 discussion?
Anyone can enter the QB1 discussion. I don't think he's going to be a QB1 this week. Sure, it's possible. Anything's possible, Anybody watch Angels in the Outfield? Nate, this is a baseball reference for you. And, it could happen. As the kids say, it could happen, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't bank on it. But, I mean, in Superflex, I think he's a fine QB2 to have, of course, which then again, in a 35-team league, yeah, he's a starter. It's all, narrative driven. But I guess the question is, do we think that Atlanta and Arthur Smith stick with a passing focus like they've done for the last 2 weeks? We've seen that the last 2 weeks. I mean, Ridder's been, first and over the last 2 weeks, really, first and third and first in yardage, all these positives. Yeah. What is it? Ridder's first in attempts, third in completions, first in yards. And I just still don't trust it.
Well, that's the thing is he's had back-to-back games with 300 yards passing. And in those 2 games, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can, you can't start him with any confidence, especially in a 1 QB league. But even in a super flex, there might be a better option. But I mean, hell, like I said, 300 yards, QB1 last week overall. Even if he's a QB2 in your flex or a super flex, I mean, not bad. I think he's gonna see a lot more pressure this week than he has in weeks prior. Hollywood, neither one of these teams has allowed a running back to score a touchdown. Both of them have given up rushing touchdowns, but they've been to quarterbacks. Do either one of these defenses give up a rushing touchdown to a true running back, whether that's Algiers, whether that we know they don't use Brian Robinson down there, so it's Algiers or Rashad White. Does either one of those get touchdowns today?
I would look real close to see, and maybe y'all can tell me, is Vita Vea, is he playing? Because he was questionable earlier when I looked. I don't know.
I will look.
Still questionable.
Still questionable.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. If he plays, then I say no. But if he's out, that's a huge obstacle out of the way. And I would say, yeah, one of them probably scores.
Well, he did have a limited practice on Friday, so
yeah.
it's trending in the right direction.
I mean, his impact on that defense, especially the run game, is huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's night and day difference. So that's what I would have to. That's what I would have to know. Is he? If he's out, then yes, I think one of them gets in.
Jorge, what is the deal? Is it just Arthur Smith, or what's the deal with Bijan Robinson? And I mean, you kind of have to start him if he's on your team, but he's just been meh.
It's almost like it's either or with Atlanta. It's either they're going to emphasize the running game or they're going to get rid of the ball. And there's a lot of narrative to say, okay, well, we need to know if Desmond Ridder's the guy we're going forward. Are we going to what are we doing as an organization? Are we going to, draft a quarterback next year in the first round? Are we going to move up? We got Ridder. What was he, like a late third, fourth round pick, something like that? He wasn't a first 2-rounder quarterback. So the lack of balance there is really disturbing. I do want to go back to Desmond Ridder for a second. As much as I just slammed him, he actually has 3 QB1 games this season. One of which early on in the season was attributed to rushing the ball more. The past 2 weeks have been more passing volume. But to Nate's point, as far as blitzing and whatnot, I think that they will today emphasize more of the rushing game, just so that they kind of take the pressure off of Ridder in that pass rush. Yeah.
Speaking of passing the ball, let's look at Tampa with Godwin and Evans, two, as Nate says, 2 completely different trajectories as the season has gone on. Evans started off hot and has cooled off. Godwin started off cool, has started to heat up. My issue with the way Tampa is running this offense right now is both of them are playing outside. Godwin should be more in the slot, giving that a little bit more relief to Baker Mayfield. Hopefully that happens today. But the Falcons have allowed 10 passing TDs, but only 5 of them have gone to a wide receiver. Is there a touchdown upside for both of these guys, but which one gets the touchdown today, Nate?
Man.
Do you have a coin?
I was going to say the exact same thing. If we're going to look at, like you said, trajectories, it has been more the Godwin side. He's seeing the uptick in targets, in just an overall yardage, and Evans start off. But if you're going to say touchdown, you have to go with the guy who has 3 of them versus the person who has 0. So I'm going to say Evans. Godwin has more targets, receptions. Evans has more touchdowns.
Trey Palmer, sneaky play.
I like Trey Palmer, actually. Yeah, I really do. He's really he came on last week. So. Yeah, and his target share last week was really good. I think that he's definitely. I was going to say, if I was about to add a DFS component, like 1 dart throw per game, and he was going to be the dart throw for me this week, just simply because last week we saw, 60 plus of the routes run, 22 of the targets per route run, almost a 20% target share. And it was downfield. he was eating up, hell, he had over 30% air yard percentage. So I just don't know if I want to bank on 3 receivers being viable for the Buccaneers week in and week out.
No, I think the reason he was viable last week is because of who they were playing with, a vaunted front four that Detroit had. They turned into a passing game for the Bucs as a whole. The issue for Palmer, for me, was he did get the opportunities and did not capitalize on them. If he's getting the 3 to 4 targets and he's capitalizing at least on 3 to 4 targets, but now last week he gets 7 targets and only pulls in 2 of them. That's an issue for me. Let's talk about the IDP side of it. Oh, wait, let's Tutu or Curtis Samuel, mate.
Golly,
Tutu is at home against Pittsburgh, and Curtis Samuel is
the Giants.
The Giants.
I know it makes me. I think I'm going to go Curtis Samuel. I don't like Tutu, but I think that's my bias coming out of me.
How much volume do you think Deontay Foreman will have today, Hollywood?
I think he'll have a sizable amount, right? It's just a question of what he's going to be able to do with it. As a flex play, I think it's okay. I mean, I think the value is there. I don't want to say he's going to have 20, 25 carries, but 15-ish, I could see.
He had 15 last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's the number, right? 15 to maybe 17, somewhere in there. And again, maybe having that kind of role last week sets him up for this week to be a little better. So yeah, as a flex play, I kind of like him. Yeah.
Nate?
Yeah, I do. I think he'll have, 70+% of the rush share. And the only thing, like I said, going back to what I said earlier, the only thing that scares me is his pass pro sucks. And if he allows a bad hit it's Tyson Badgett. Speaking of Tyson Badgett real quick, did you guys see his dad, Travis Badgett? His father
is an arm wrestler.
He is. He's like a world renowned arm wrestler. He type Jorge when you get a chance. Granted, you don't have much going on today. I know, just between 80 lineups and this. Go in and look at his interview with the NFL Network reporter where they challenge him to an arm wrestling match. He basically takes the mic and he's like, I'll take it from here. He's like, easy, son, easy. See, what happens is if you end up here, which with him losing, he goes, you're the baddest man in the world. And it ain't going to happen. But here's what's going to happen. And it was rather entertaining. And it makes me really root for Tyson Badgett even more because his dad is, have a badass.
Well, you should be rooting for a undrafted Division III guy that came into camp and basically told Nathan Peterson, hold the clipboard for me. I'll be right back. So yeah, he won that backup job in the camp. So you have to somewhat root for him. Latavius Murray, Jordan Mason, or Darrell Henderson, full PPR. Yes, this is a gross list, but we talked about Latavius Murray. We talked about Darrell Henderson a few minutes ago. Nate, or let's go, Jorge. Which one of these are you? Do these in order. Since I don't know what KJ needs here. Let's put them in order. Rank them in order for you, Jorge.
PPR Mason, then Murray, even though the PPR upside's not there, but the touchdown upside is there, and then Henderson. And Mason is tricky because you don't know the Elijah Mitchell splits with him, but I trust the play calling to get, if Mason does in fact get the majority of touches, Shanahan to get him in space. Yeah. But
that's my concern as well, because that's a Monday night game.
Yeah, actually, let me take that back. I'll go Murray, Mason, then Henderson, because Henderson, you don't know what you're getting, even though McVay is like, oh yeah, he just jumped right back in. I'm like, all right, let's see.
That's the correct order.
Yep.
I mean, you're counting on Murray to be the touchdown vulture, and Mason and Henderson, you don't know what their role is. So, I mean, you know what it is with Murray, right? You need that touchdown vulture kind of play. So, for me, I'd take Murray.
Sounds like Nate's got a different order to this list.
Because I mean, Jordan Mason has a 2% target share on the season.
Well,
I don't see any receiving upside for Mason myself. But then again, I don't know if I want to believe in the Darrell Henderson hype, but man, it's hard to say with a year removed, not playing yet, what will his role be. But I'm still leaning. I'm going to go Henderson, Murray, and then Jordan Mason. But I don't think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that CMC is an actual play and really puts a wrench in the old cog.
Let's get back over to the Tampa Atlanta game. Talk about the IDP stuff really, really quick. Normally I ask you who you are starting, but Nate, I want to ask you who is somebody that has been very good over the last few weeks. And you were saying, no, we're sitting him this week.
Oh, probably Nate Landman. He has been really good. Filling in for Troy Anderson is no, I'd say, easy situation, but he did it so well. And I mean, everything seemed to come together, but this particular matchup, I'm not as thrilled about. And I think that at least what I wrote about in the start sit situation in my article is that his fluctuation in snaps is a little concerning. So it hasn't been a consistent 90%, which is what you would 85% even from the LB2, 3 on it, or LB2 on a team, LB3 in fantasy. But Tampa Bay as a whole, if you look at the entire season, is they've only allowed 2 linebackers total to have double-digit tackles. And I don't trust Nate Landman to be the guy that's going to be that third. And without that, he just doesn't have enough splash play upside for me to feel as comfortable. But you weren't starting him as a 1 or a 2. He was your third, and with bye weeks, it's tougher. It's what makes start sits on a 6-game bye a difficult area to jump into.
Hollywood, do you have anybody that is a must sit in this game?
In this game, must sit. I wouldn't say must sit, but I would kind of agree with what Nate said about Landman. Yeah, okay. I think that would be the one.
Well, I will let you take the Atlanta side then. And who are your must plays?
For Atlanta, I kind of like Atlanta a lot defensively. Right? The must play to me that stands out has got to be Jesse Bates. A lot of people thought he was done up there in Cincinnati, and that's just not been the case. I think the whole contract thing got in the way, and now that that's out of the way, you're seeing him back to what he was, and he's been leading that defense. So he's a must play. I think Richie Grant is a must play for them. 2 safeties, they're first and second tackles on the team. Bates has the 3 interceptions, so I like those 2. I wouldn't call him a must play, but I think it's because I'm not very high on him anyway. So I will ask you, what are you all doing with? I think Grady Jarrett in position specific is a must play, but Caden Ellis, what are you doing with him?
Yeah, Caden Ellis is always a tricky one because he's
tied for the team lead with Bates and tackles.
Yep. His familiarity with that system was going to be paramount because comes over from New Orleans, same as the defensive coordinator. You think that his integration into that team and that defense was going to be pivotal. I expected him personally to be even more I expected more splash plays. And don't get me wrong, he's blitzing the quarterback, which I think is huge. He hasn't turned it. 5 pressures on 34 blitzes is not terrible. 15% roughly. I think that could be better, but yeah, I don't know why I expected more. I think that was probably an unfair ceiling that I put on him, but for what he's done, I think that as an LB3, realistically, is where we most likely have him. I would say week in and week out, he's met that expectation. Is that fair to say, Jorge?
I think the reason why we expected more is just he did just so much in New Orleans. You saw him like it's like every other week sack, half a sack, and you were kind of hoping of that versatility to carry over to Atlanta, and he's just been solely relegated to just being tackle dependent. Caden Ellis, I have it linebacker 32. So yeah, I think you're right. LB3 discussion there.
Yep. Needs to pick it
Yeah,
back
he
up.
doesn't have for anything as far as splash plays, right? Like Nate was saying, so he's only got 1 sack, 2 TFLs, and a couple quarterback hits. So I think for him, it's his tackle numbers, right? Because he's got a 69% solo rate. 27 of his 39 have been solo. So that's kind of where you're going to have, if you're going to play him, that's kind of where you're going to have to depend on. You can't do the splash plays.
Anything else you want to add to the IDP side of this for either Tampa or? Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm skipping right over Tampa because Tampa has a few guys that I think are must starts today. So Nate, tell me who is the must starts for Tampa.
My big must start. I think this is the week we've seen Devin White have a lackluster start to the season. I mean, to the point where he's been more productive when he's played less snaps, which is just not Devin White-ish. But we talked about this at the beginning of this segment with Atlanta Tampa, is that Ritter, when is he the worst? When he's under pressure, 52%. Tampa blitzes a ton, 41%. Devin White's a main, contributor in that, but he hasn't gotten to the quarterback yet. I think this is where they continue to put pressure on Desmond Ritter. And I think this is the game where Devin White has that sack and a half plus the 8 tackle game, because we know Atlanta, if they're getting pressure and Devin White gets to Desmond Ritter, what's the typical effect? They hand the ball off and they run the ball more. And if that's the case, that inflates Devin White and Levante David's tackle floor. So I think it's a win-win for Devin White. Antoine Winfield has been solid. I mean, you're going to start him as a DB2 pretty much about every week, and I don't think that changes this week either.
Anybody you want to add to that must-start list there, Jorge?
Joe Tryon-Shoyank. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, there's no.
Yeah, I thought, see, as good as I was talking about your Commanders, I thought you were fixing to talk good about my Buccaneers.
Actually, I take, and I said Winfield is a DB2, and I have him as a DB1 this week. So I don't know what I was saying. I should probably harness that in a little bit. So yeah, I like those matchup this week, especially.
All right, let's get over to the next game. Is Detroit at Baltimore. Baltimore favored by 3, over under of 43. Looks like just a few people are out of this game, Nate. Who is it?
Well, luckily it's just the starting running back for Detroit, David Montgomery, and then the safety Marcus Williams returned, now back out. So limited, but two important pieces to both of those two respective teams for sure.
And it sounds like Jahmyr Gibbs is, well, at least going to suit up and play.
So, all right, man, come on, fingers crossed.
I think that guy could be wrong.
Could be. Jared Goff on the road in a hostile environment. He's the 3rd best quarterback with a clean pocket. Ravens are tied with Buffalo for the most sacks at 24. What gives, Jorge?
I'm rolling with this one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and Jared Goff and the weapons they have there. Baltimore's pass rush.
You can say it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Not too scared of them against this offensive line for Detroit. So Jared Goff is going to keep rolling.
And that's not a knock against Baltimore's overall pass rush, because they're clearly effective at getting to the quarterback. Just not it's unique and very what's the right adjective to use? Structured and coached well. Just not a ton of overarching talent.
Either of the three of you daring enough to start Gus Edwards or Justice Hill? Hollywood?
Yeah. Well, I have to start Gus Edwards in a couple places. So I'm not particularly crazy about it, but considering some of the options, injuries and bye weeks and whatever, it's kind of led me to forcing. So I feel okay with him. I guess out of the two, I would probably rather have him than Hill, I think.
Yeah.
Ugh. Jorge, are you starting either one of these? Or are you comfortable starting either one of these?
The Lions are giving up the fewest yards on the ground, and out of the not doing it. You can't make me help, or you can't make me Gator. Not doing it.
I mean, I wish I could. I wish I could. Baltimore has allowed the 13th most rushing yards, but only one rushing TD. 2 questions on this: is Reynolds a flex play or flex worthy? And if it's Gibbs that is going to start, is he a starter? Start with you, Nate.
Well, on the Craig Reynolds side, if he plays, we've seen that he takes the David Montgomery role, and there's this reluctance to give a full workload to Jahmyr Gibbs outside of really week 3, and that's understandable. They still say he's not yet at that NFL level to be an every down back. His versatility is exceptional, but Craig Reynolds, it's like you know that Jahmyr Gibbs is one massive play away from getting a lion's share of that workload. I think that's what we're all expecting to happen. Is he, like against Kansas City in week 1, he slips on that little out route that he ran, or the swing route, and if he had not slipped and scored the touchdown, does that change the thought process for Dan Campbell and company? And I don't know that answer, but I think that this matchup is much more tricky than just Craig Reynolds being effective. I think he'll get enough volume to be flex worthy, but I don't think I would feel more. If I had to choose between the two, I'd start Gibbs over Reynolds.
Okay, well, let me add this to it. Baltimore has allowed the 8th most receiving yards to running backs. As you said, you were talking about Gibbs in week 3. Actually, week 2 was a better week for him, where he received 9 targets, caught 7 of them. Does that change your opinion? If he is healthy and he is the primary back, are we going to see in a PPR or even a half PPR getting Gibbs involved more with no David Montgomery?
Yeah, well, it doesn't change my opinion. I still like Gibbs more than Reynolds for that one reason, is his versatility makes him a safer floor and a higher ceiling. But it's the uncertainty of just how involved will Gibbs be. Are they still going to ease him back in, or will he get enough of a workload to be viable? Would you start both of them if you had to? One as an RB2 and one as a flex, if bye weeks really hit you hard and there's not a ton of options out there? I guess, let's see. What are some of the good comparables from a running back in this that same area? What about Jorge? I'm going to ask this one for you. Sure. Would you go Najee or Jahmyr Gibbs? Najee against the Rams.
Yeah. So I've been pretty consistent with my Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't want to call it hate, but lack of faith. You mentioned Gator, the PPR upside, the target volume in recent weeks before he got injured. I need to see it to be confident. Now, I'm not confident in having to start him in a couple leagues, so that's kind of where I land with him. I feel more confident that I've seen at least Najee show some uptick in production, although be it not much. And even against Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones, and I'm sure Jordan Fuller will crowd the line of scrimmage also just to take away the running game because the Steelers are so one-dimensional. I'd still go Najee over Gibbs, but I hope that changes today in terms of my confidence level in him.
Hollywood, are you comfortable starting Reynolds at all?
No, I don't know. I'm unsettled on it. It just makes me feel not comfortable with that. So no, I'm not.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is, I mean, I don't know that he's going to take over a full David Montgomery workload by no means. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but
Right.
Just like the in fantasy, we want pieces of good offense, whether that's the Chiefs, whether that's the Miami Dolphins, whether that's the Buffalo Bills. We now know for a fact that this is a very good offense. So it's still no Craig Reynolds.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I just don't feel comfortable with that.
You bring up a very good point, Gator, and I think so. And you and I can have differing opinions about this. You talk about wanting to have pieces of very good offenses. I think it also depends on the format here. Like if you were drafting best ball leagues and you got into a late best ball and you were able to get some depth pieces at various positions on teams with good offenses, yes, that makes you more excited in how you're targeting, constructing your roster. I feel like I don't know if that's necessarily the case for a redraft league where you're trying to target in the later rounds. Let me get Josh Reynolds or Craig Reynolds just because they're attached to good offenses and they have there are other options you could choose from. Craig Reynolds, I believe he just got declared that he will play, but the fact that it came to a game time decision, I'm not feeling comfortable starting him either. And as much as I don't like Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd rather take the gamble on Gibbs than what Reynolds has to offer.
That's fair. Baltimore is 10th against the wide receiver position. Amon-Ra is a smash start, but is there any other wide receiver that you are smashing start on today, Nate?
No, not really smash. No, I mean wide receiver. No, Sam Laporta, yes, but I know that it's going to pivot to Jameson Williams talk, and I know that if you want to gamble on the big play, the 40+ touchdown reception is there. I'm not 100% smash starting that, but it's something that I'm definitely going to monitor to see if he can inherit the, wide receiver 2 worthy amount of targets and or route participation.
I believe Marvin Jones is out as well. Not that means anything. That just looks like it's going to be more opportunity for Jameis Williams. He's still only getting about 3 he's 3 targets 2 weeks in a row and 2 receptions. The only thing that boosted him up last week against Tampa was that touchdown.
Yeah.
All right, Jorge, let's talk about the IDP side of it. I'll allow you to pick which team you want and go from there.
Let's go Detroit. Obviously you're starting Aiden Hutchinson. Alex Anzalone, you're not liking it, but you can't help but deny that he is a viable starting linebacker for the Detroit Lions. Jack Campbell has come on strong in recent weeks, but the snap percentage needs some bumping up before you can kind of feel comfortable starting him. I'm always kind of confused as far as the secondary for the Lions about who I should be rotating in and out. So confidence level is not high per se. Those are kind of my must starts there though for the Lions. Nate, am I missing anybody here in the secondary?
I mean, when Brian Branch is in, I'm always wanting to play him just because his role in the slot, it lines up well against Baltimore, and he's been such a dynamic playmaker. It's hard to avoid. As far as the safeties go, when you talk about Kirby Joseph and Tracy Walker, and I don't want to mess with any of them for sure.
Hollywood, give me the Baltimore side. I'm leaving this to you because I don't want Nate to show his biases again on this Baltimore, one player on Baltimore.
Right. And before I get to that, in a league, I just now tried to set my lineup, and I'm forced to start both Gus Edwards and Jamar Gibbs.
I don't hate it.
Yeah. No, I don't hate it, but it's not ideal either, considering what it goes along with what we were talking about on the defensive side, though. For Baltimore, you said, right?
Yes.
There's a lot to like there. You got to think Roquan right away, right? Kyle Hamilton, I think, is another. Um, trying to see if there was somebody up front. I think Patrick Queen is a must start. Um, and just let me say, for all the shit that he's took from NFL fans and fantasy football fans, he's putting together back to back pretty damn good years considering. Um, so 3.5 sacks. He's got 53 tackles. So yeah, I think he's definitely a must start. I think Geno Stone is a must start. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he's got 3 interceptions, 26 tackles. So I think he's a must start. Outside of those, I think some people would say Brandon Stevens, but I don't think he's a must start. Clowney's not. They don't really have a defensive tackle that I would say is a must start. So I think it's Smith, Queen, Hamilton, and Stone. Those are your 4 must starts for Baltimore.
I will admit that I am one of those people who have not been high on Patrick Queen for most of his career. I will say last year when he was performing well, when I would admit that I would consider starting him, I would have to have a box of not just a pad, but like a box of pads of steel wool so I could scrape that nastiness off me. I think it's gotten to the point where I can put the box away for IDP purposes.
Yeah. Anything else we need to add to the IDP side of any of these 1:00 games that you get that has come up here, Nate?
No, I'm trying to think if there's any sneaky plays as a result. I mean, the deeper the leagues, the more sneaky you have to get. But I think you guys have touched on every single player that is worth mentioning, at least.
All righty, let's get into the
Hutchinson
after.
still at 1/4 of a sack if you want to bet.
Still can't bet Missouri, Hollywood. Thanks for rubbing
I
it
put
in.
in those Commanders bets though that we were talking about as we were talking. Like yes.
You can't parlay them, and that's what I would want to do. Is
Yeah, it's not letting me parlay them.
I don't want to do a $3 bet to win $4.50. That just it's not worth the time to me.
Well, it won't let me parlay the same game. Now I can parlay, like Hutchinson with Payne. That would probably be a pretty good one because Payne's already a plus 120.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and work on that while Gator takes us to the 3:00 Central start.
Yes, so it sounds like Hollywood, just keep an eye on your Venmo. Sounds like there's fixing to be some Venmo payments sent your direction. Afternoon slate. Let's start off with Pittsburgh at the Rams. Rams favored by 344 is the over-under. It looks like Pat Freiermuth and Kyron Williams are the only significant ones that are going to be out of this game. Rams have allowed the fewest passing touchdowns with 4. Is Pickett even Superflex worthy if it wasn't for the buys, Hollywood?
Oof. No, because I don't have Pickett anywhere. So it's not something that I would, even in a Superflex. You'd have to be hurting pretty bad to want to play Pickett here, I think.
Jorge, you have some shares of Pickett.
I mean, I don't know that I wouldn't take Tyrod Taylor over
shares of Pickett.
No shares of Pickett? Nate, any shares of Pickett?
No. I don't even have a football card of Kenny Pickett.
So all around, the answer is all around. It sounds like the answer is even if I had shares of him, I'm not playing him in a Superflex position. Is that correct?
Well, let's dispel something really quick, okay? I understand there are a lot of people out there in leagues that you hear Superflex and you're like, oh, that's the same thing as 2-quarterback league. That does not mean you start a second quarterback. You could very well have a skill player that, in fact, I guarantee you'll have a skill player on your roster that'll outscore Kenny Pickett this week. So you don't have to put him into your Superflex spot.
Actually, in 2 of my leagues, I do have Puka Nacua playing in my Superflex position because of the just horrific quarterback options that I have with the buys that we have going on this week. Stafford, on the other hand, third most passing yards, but only 6 passing touchdowns. With Kyron Williams out and the uncertainty all around this running back room in Los Angeles, will he air it out, Jorge? Is this going to be Tutu Atwell, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua game? And even add in Tyler Higbee?
I think the yardage is going to stay consistent because that's what you've seen. My concern, and just like you brought up, is the end zone, efficiency. Just the touchdown is just not. The touchdowns are just not adding up there in terms of volume. It's consistently not showing up there. So, could this be the week where he breaks through? Possibly. I'm not exactly scared of the Pittsburgh secondary. I am wondering whether or not he'll have enough time to let these plays develop in the red zone, knowing that you have Watt and Highsmith on either side coming at you, and the Rams' offensive line, outside of Haverstein, I believe, is not great. I think he breaks through this week. I think he gets at least 3 touchdowns this week.
Oh, okay. I like that call. Nate, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but when we looked at what Stafford did for the first 4 games, 3 of the 4 over 300 yards passing.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2, 226 and 222. Those were against Philly and against Arizona. I understood that the secondary for Pittsburgh is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
But are they going to try to take away Cooper Kupp and then it's going to be Puka Nacua again? Or is there somebody, on that Pittsburgh defense that can take out Cooper Kupp?
No, number one, no, I don't think there's any one person that can take out Cooper Kupp. I think they can scheme and kind of bracket if they want to try to eliminate that. But I think that would be the same thing that every other team in the NFL would have tried to have done for the last 2 years now, 3 years now for Cooper Kupp unsuccessfully. Mm-hmm. And Puka, a lot of people quick to look at last week and say, yep, exactly like I knew it. Puka, once Cooper Kupp returns, Puka is useless. Well, Puka still had a 30% target share. Mm-hmm. When those are more catchable, and granted, I know that the pressure won't be nearly as bad on him as it was last week. I say that. That's probably not fair because TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith will say otherwise. But I think they both are fine. And I don't know the reason for him exactly having, 2 of the quote unquote down weeks, other than last week from a overall perspective, he only threw the ball 24 times. So it was still that was almost 10 yards per attempt. So he does that same 35 plus attempt game and he's over 300 with the multiple touchdowns. And the game against that was against Arizona, and the game against Philly was just kind of the same thing. Not same thing against Arizona, but same thing that Philly does to everybody is put so much pressure. You complete, 56% of your passes. It's going to be hard to get 300 plus yards. So I think that's going to be the biggest positive from this week is Pittsburgh. I don't think we'll be able to maintain the consistent pressure that you saw out of Philly.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Rams have been pretty stingy against the run, allowing the 7th fewest points. Is Najee Harris or Warren, either one of them RB2 or flex worthy? And then who outperforms who, Jorge?
I think Warren is flex worthy, and I think he outperforms Najee in PPR just because of the reception upside.
With all of the Najee love coming from you,
look,
I'm surprised that you say it that way.
Given the option you gave me of Najee and insert name that I can't even remember anymore, it's Najee. That being said, on the team, if I had to choose a Steelers running back, it would be Jalen Warren.
All right. I still want it to be Najee, but I'm going to trust you on that one. Hurt my feelings yet again. All right, Hollywood. The running back room, we've talked about this for the Rams. Is anybody in this running back room flex worthy?
I don't think so. I mean, just because of the uncertainty of who's doing what and what the rep count share is, and I would just stay away from it.
Jorge, looks like Deontay is back. Are you starting him this week?
If I'm super desperate.
Only
super desperate.
So this is a wait and see what happens for you.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Same thing with you, Nate.
Yeah. I really do like Deontay, and I think that there's in a PPR league, it wouldn't shock me if he sees double-digit targets in his first week back. But I wouldn't bet the house on that. Not as much as I'm going to bet on the parlay prop bets with Hollywood as soon as he gets those put in for me and tells me how I'm going to become a millionaire and I can quit this lousy job and go on to better. And I'm just kidding.
There you go. Well, go ahead. You brought up Watt. You brought up Highsmith. Go ahead and take over the IDP side of Pittsburgh. Who is a must start? Who are we staying away from in this game?
Those are two of the names right there is Watt and Highsmith. Minka, defensive back, I think he's always going to be a must start. Just too dynamic of a player not to be. And then Cole Holcomb he's not an LB1 for me, but he is more than serviceable, especially with the inconsistencies. Like, I have no interest in Quan Alexander or Landon Roberts. They switch snap percentages each week. No one's made one particular case to be relevant as far as I'm concerned. And until that proves otherwise, I have Holcomb as the only linebacker that I'm really comfortable. And that's an LB3 this week for me for Holcomb. And that's it for Pittsburgh.
Jorge, you want to take the Rams side of the ball?
It's very simple. Aaron Donald, Ernest Jones. You could make the case for Jordan Fuller, but not a must start. We talked about this on Shoot the Gap on Wednesday. Byron Young has just been falling into sacks. At least that's how I phrased it. Depending on where you're looking in your IDP roster, he could be somebody you could throw in there. Again, not a must start, but somebody who, like Hollywood was alluding to, and when you're looking at these prop bets over on DK or FanDuel, I would not feel scared about placing a bet, especially if it's like a quarter sack or half sack.
Hollywood, anything you want to add? And why did you turn your screen sideways? But now you look funny.
Maybe he's just mute.
I think, yeah. There he is. I hear him. You want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think they kind of mentioned. Not really. I think they kind of covered everything for that.
Alrighty, then we will move on to Arizona at Seattle. Seattle is favored by 8.5. 44.5 is the over/under. Looks like only a few people are out of this game, both on the defensive side of the ball. But Nate, go ahead and tell us who they are.
You hit the nail on the head. Two guys on the same team, damn near same position. And basically, they are. Is Jalen Thompson, which is a big loss because he's very versatile for the Cardinals, and the backup slot corner in Antonio Hamilton. Outside of that, nothing.
Jorge, Kyle Murray is back at practice. What is your outlook on him rest of season?
Given that he's one of my two quarterbacks left in the Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League, I'm hoping that it's very good. The report came out last night. I believe it was from Schefter that said that the Cardinals are not afraid of the monetary potential loss in Kyler Murray this year if he gets re-injured. I believe it's like $20-something million. So it sounds like from all the reports that they want him to come back into their lineup this year. So, hey, I mean, for fantasy purposes, I'm excited. I hope people have picked him up. If he has been on your league's waiver wire and you can stash him somewhere. Yeah, so I'm hoping he does come back, because if you look back at his fantasy performances the past couple seasons, I want to say he was like top 6 or top 7 in points per game. So we know what he can do by himself, let alone when he has some competent weapons like a Hollywood, surging Michael Wilson rookie. So,
Real life football question for you. Do you think that the Cardinals would start him to try to trade him?
I don't know where this notion of like, let's trade for a quarterback mid-season and to have no chemistry with the team. Like, if you're trading for a quarterback, like, what are you hoping for? Like him to just like a quarterback just to jump into an opposing a new offense and master everything in 2 weeks and be able to like that doesn't. This isn't insert your fantasy quarterback into. This isn't fantasy. This is real football. That just doesn't happen.
That's why I preface it real football questions. So because I agree with you. I think the hardest position in the game, you're not jumping from one team to the next and picking up a playbook, no matter, I don't care, if you've played for the head coach or the offensive coordinator 4 years ago. It doesn't matter to me. I agree 100%. Geno versus Arizona is definitely a start with a question mark. Hollywood.
Ooh, Geno is a start? Well, I mean, it's the thing, right? With the bye weeks, I guess 2 quarterbacks, super flex, then sure. 1 quarterback, I'm not so sure. I like the matchup for him. But I guess it kind of goes back to what we said earlier with DK being available. If he's not available, I think that helps Tyler Lockett a little bit. I think you could do a lot worse than Geno. So I'd be okay with starting. Yeah.
I actually favor, even if DK is fine, I actually favor Lockett in this matchup when you look at the way that the Arizona plays more zone than they do man. When it's a man matchup, it's usually DK.
Right.
When it's a zone matchup, it is usually Tyler Lockett that thrives. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Preston Evans, who did our Flex of the Week article, and he was pretty high on Jackson Smith and Jigba this week, just for the simple fact that the previous few weeks, the tackles for the Seattle Seahawks have been out, not giving a lot of time for Geno Smith to maybe see all of the receiving options downfield. Left tackle just came back, I believe, last week. So maybe this is an opportunity for the Seahawks to kind of start phasing him into more of the passing game. Something to pay attention to. Not somebody that I'm starting, but somebody that I'm definitely paying attention to.
So for the ones that don't know, a few weeks ago, Tyler Heil was over in Europe. Here in a couple of weeks, our very own Stacey Perez will be over in Europe. I know this guy is, with his last name, but I think we are okay to say ciao, meaning bye, to Amari DiMercato. But is there any other running back in the Arizona running back room that is worth even mentioning right now, Nate?
No, I mean, Damian Williams is probably the one that would see the most work.
Why did you just did you see what Jorge, you just made him almost, I don't know if he threw up in his mouth, but it was all kind of wiggly and things were happening down there.
By mentioning Damian Williams.
Yeah. Those are the mean streets out there for running backs sometimes. But when you say, is there another name worth mentioning? Unfortunately, that's the only name worth mentioning because the rest of them are just, no, that's not fair. Yes, you can say Keontae Ingram. We've been saying his name the entire preseason. He's supposed to be the guy that's going to be filling in if James Conner got hurt. And when James Conner got hurt, it was not Keontae Ingram. And last week was his massive 6 points and half-point PPR, which, paced the Cardinals over Damian Williams. But I don't know. I feel like they're going to lean on Damian Williams more this week than the other two. And it's going to turn into probably 6 fantasy points. So no.
Yeah, if you have to, it's a running back. I think it's going to be Ingram. When you look at what he did last week, he only had 10 attempts, but he was averaging 4 yards per attempt on like 37% snap share. So
watch out, 4 whole yards at the same. Fuck.
Well,
sign him up.
You got 6 teams on bye, and with the way the running backs are down, it's again, like I said earlier, it is literally a coin flip on who, if you can, and who it would be. But this one is not a coin flip. So Charbonnet has not practiced 3 straight days. Is it only Kenneth Walker in that backfield for Seattle? And if so, what is his projection today going up against the Arizona defense? Hollywood.
Ooh, man, they don't have a whole lot on defense, right? I mean, Arizona, speaking of them,
Yeah.
nothing that really scares me. I don't know.
Well, the Cardinals are allowing the 7th most rushing yards, which is great for Kenneth Walker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this should be a Kenneth Walker game.
I don't think there's anybody else other than Walker you really play, right? As far as running back, I mean, I think it's him, and it's going to be his show today, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to start DJ Dallas, who is
exactly.
So, is Hollywood the only starter that you're starting on the Arizona side of the ball, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, we can say the name Michael Wilson, but I don't love it. I mean, I guess you could be forced to do so, but I think there could be even better pivots from some of the waiver wire, honestly.
Okay. Or a JT Gibbs or a Mari for his flex, for Darius's flex. Full PPR.
You all are making me say a name that I don't want to keep saying. Jahmyr Gibbs out of these 3.
Hollywood, a JT Gibbs or Amari full PPR flex.
I might go Amari.
With Deshaun Watson back in the lineup.
I don't know. Gibbs' injury. If he's fully healthy, then Gibbs is the play. This is kind of nasty. I think Gibbs is the right play.
It's sad when you sit there. It's sad when you can sit there and look at a group of players, and Jonathan Taylor being one of those 3, and you're like, this is nasty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad.
Right.
All right, we hit on this a minute ago with Tyler Lockett. He didn't practice on Friday. DK didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, and limited practice on Friday with no Jalen Thompson and no Antonio Hamilton. How far are you moving JSN up in your rankings?
I have him at wide receiver 40, right behind Romeo Doubs and ahead of Wan'Dale Robinson. So I'm pretty comfortable keeping him there. But like you said, like both of these wide receivers are banged up, referring to Lockett and DK. So this could be a coming out party for JSN.
I have a feeling this is going to be that week. I'm actually having to start him just due to buys in one of my flex positions this week. Fortunately, I have not had to play him. It has not been beautiful, let alone pretty. I think this could be the week, though, especially against the Arizona Zone D. All right, let's talk about the IDP side of it. Jorge, I will let you lead off with the Seattle side. Who is a must start and who are we leaving on the bench this week for Seattle?
So must start Wagner, Jordan Brooks, not Julian Love anymore, just because Jamal Adams has kind of retaken the snap percentage there. Although, what? I take that back. He's been getting more play. We know what his upside is. But I hate using this as a cop out, but it doesn't take much for him to be out of your lineup real quick during a game or not to produce. And I think we all know what the elephant in the room is and why that is. So I don't know if he's necessarily reaching must start status for me, but the linebackers definitely, in terms of pass rushers, you could throw in Uchenna Nwosu, but again, not necessarily a must start. Maybe as a DL3. If I had 3 defensive linemen starting in my league, but that would be it for Seattle.
So is Witherspoon not a start?
So
two boom or two bust?
Well, I think it's more of like if you're playing in a league where you just have defensive backs only and not cornerback specific, I don't think I don't know. I think you could find maybe more options, but in a cornerback specific league, maybe Witherspoon. No, definitely Witherspoon is definitely an option. Nate, what are your thoughts on that for Witherspoon?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know my opinion as far as like maybe others don't, but with corners, it is extremely challenging to get guaranteed production. I mean, if you look at the overall landscape on the season, the top in fantasy pro scoring, the top cornerback scorer right now is Darius Williams with Jacksonville, and that's because he's had 2 games with 20 plus scoring, 2 other games double digits, but then 2 games where he scored 3 points. So you're going to get the ups and downs, a la with Devin Witherspoon, except for he has that huge blow up potential like he had in week 4 where he puts up 35 points. Kyle Hamilton as a safety has that same volatility, but the safeties in general, and I'm not using Kyle Hamilton because I think he's been great, but that type of super high ceiling is unlikely. You just want that consistent production like you see out of, say, Dax Hill or Cameron Bynum. But I like Devin Witherspoon. I don't know if I love him in this matchup, but I think that he's that rare, unique. He's a rookie corner. They move him in and out. He's definitely he gets attacked, so he gets plenty of volume coming his direction. But the question is the volume's coming from Arizona, and I don't know if Arizona has the ball that much to make the tackle floor worthwhile. So I'm probably going to say, temper expectations. DB3 for Devin Witherspoon.
Real quick, we did get final word in the the Giants game. Daniel Jones is out. Okay. So it will be Tyrod Taylor. We already knew this, but just wanted to get it absolutely confirmed that that's what was happening. All right, Hollywood, who on the Arizona side, outside of what, Budda Baker is a must start, and then who is a must sit?
Outside of Budda Baker, I feel like you kind of got to start Kazir White, right? He's leading the team in tackles, 55, has a couple of sacks. If he wasn't banged up and you're playing position specific, I would say Keitrell Clark, the rookie at corner, because he's had a phenomenal rookie season so far. So I don't know, like you said, other than maybe White and Baker must start. But I do like the upside with Dennis Gardeck. He's leading the team with 4 sacks. And then I like Victor Dumakije, right? So he's next with 3.5. So, and he's been a surprise. And I think I was kind of shocked that they let Myjai Sanders go, right? And then I got to thinking, I was like, well, Gardeck and Dumakije that's your top 2 sack leaders. They've outperformed him. So those are both sneaky good plays, especially if you can get Dumakije as a DN instead of a outside linebacker. I think his value goes up there. So Collins, I don't think he's a must start. He's closer to a must sit for me than a start. Other than that, I don't think there is a whole lot. I think it's White and Baker. Wallace, maybe you kind of wait and see, and then, maybe Jalen Thompson would be the other must start, I think
he's out. I could be wrong. Or at least he was questionable heading into this one.
Oh, that is right. He is out.
Yeah, Jalen Thompson's out.
Yeah.
Jorge,
right.
Anybody
I think it's White and Baker.
Anybody that Nate and Hollywood missed that is in this Arizona-Seattle matchup that we need to keep an eye on?
Look, Kayvon Wallace, like I think I mentioned him a little bit earlier, we saw his production kind of dip down last week. You just don't know what's going to happen here with Budda Baker returning, so that makes me a little cautious. So, no, not a must start.
Then we shall move on to the next game, and that is Green Bay favored by 1.5 at Denver. 45 is the over-under. Greg Dulcich and Devontae Campbell are out. Jorge, you must start either Jordan Love or Russell Wilson.
Jordan Love.
Answered that so quick. No faith in Russell Wilson.
0.
Nate?
Yeah. I guess I'm going to say Jordan Love. He's at least proven to be more consistent until, week
The
5.
Raiders game.
I mean, but that's the hard thing with Russ is that he's actually been better than Love on the season in terms of no, he is not better. He's had a higher ceiling than Jordan Love, but his floor has been that's not even true either. I don't even know anymore. I so bad in terms of wanting to say I look at this and I'm like, he's had so many worse weeks than Jordan Love, and I'm like, he hasn't. He's had his floor is higher than Jordan Love's worst game, but I just don't trust. Much. It's 8.9 to 8 points. I mean, you're talking splitting hairs. That's why I hate that question, because now I'm looking at just which game, I think there's a non-zero chance that it's Aaron Jones who leads Green Bay and they just run down Denver's throat and forcing Russ to pass the entire time, meaning I would favor Russ. But I just don't want to do that. And I just would rather go with Jordan Love with his weapons, and that's a passing touchdown to Aaron Jones instead of a rushing touchdown. Build my narrative my direction, right?
That's right. Use the stats to favor your argument. It sounds just like what Nate does. No. The Aaron Jones, is he ready to be RB1? Is he, or not the RB1, but is he ready to enter that RB1 category this week against a not great, not even good Denver D?
The worst Denver D, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
running back?
They gave up the most fantasy points to the running back position. So, yeah, I'd say he is in a good position if he's healthy.
Well, Nate brought it up. He's, that it's going to be a passing touchdown. Can we get him a rushing touchdown on the ground, Hollywood?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, Denver's pretty awful, so
we know they're.
I would lean closer to yes than no, I guess, because they're trying to shop some of their pieces off. They've already got rid of Gregory, and there's rumors of Surtain maybe leaving at the deadline. So I think for the next couple of weeks, this team could be really bad, just with the uncertainty. So yeah.
Gator, I guess your question could be something targeted to more Scott Fishbowl participants who get points for first downs.
First downs and points per carry. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is he now in that RB1 discussion? Which then I would say maybe not, just because, like Nate was alluding to, the receiving upside there.
Well, speaking of running backs, Green Bay's defense, their Achilles heel is the RBs. But which one of the Denver RBs is going to be the right one to take this week? Is it Javonte Williams? Is it Jaleel McLaughlin?
Yes.
Is it Shamaj P. Ryan?
Nope. Give me the most productive running back on the Broncos this season, which has been Jaleel McLaughlin, which is sad. And I say that because it's not like he's blowing things away either. But he has technically been the most productive for fantasy purposes and half PPR scoring, and we see in the receiving upside. So I'm rolling with Jaleel until, I'm just rolling with Jaleel.
Hollywood, you're rolling with Jaleel as well?
Yeah, I mean, him and Williams both have 190 yards rushing. So the difference is Williams has done it on 48 carries. Jaleel's done it on 29. So almost 20 fewer carries for the same amount of yards. Plus, he has a touchdown, which Williams doesn't. So.
All right. Denver, we talked about Green Bay's Achilles heel. Denver's Achilles heel, of course, is just, for the defensive side of things, is just being on the field. But outside of that, they give up. But outside of that, they give up the least 2 wide receivers. They're actually pretty decent against wide receivers. Is it Watson you're starting, or is it Doubs, or is it Reed? Jorge.
I'm going to go Romeo Doubs this week. I just feel like he's going to be. He has been not playing as well the past couple of weeks, but I trust the connection with Jordan Love. I think they get back on track. Christian Watson, again, it depends on the type of league. If you're going non-PPR, Watson. If you're going half or full, give me Dubs.
Could this be a good game for Luke Musgrave there, Hollywood? They allow the most to tight ends.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got 18 catches for 159 on the season. Depending on where they put Surtain, do they let him follow Dubs or do they just leave him on a certain side of the field? Yeah, I like Musgrave because I think those linebackers from Denver could put enough pressure on Love to kind of force him to throw short a little bit, some hot routes. So with that, I think Musgrave is a pretty decent play this week.
All right, let's talk IDP. I'll give you the Denver Broncos. I will give to Hollywood. Before we go there, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. Jorge.
I think you have to start Rashawn Gary, defensive end. I just, he does have elite upside there. Conversely, you do not have to start Preston Smith. Quay Walker should get the start there with Devondre Campbell likely being out. He's currently doubtful, but chances are he's not going to play. I'm avoiding the secondary for the Green Bay Packers. Maybe Rudy Ford in a pinch there at defensive back, but definitely not a must start. I think my must start, like I said, my must starts are Quay Walker and Rashawn Gary.
All right, Hollywood, you just beat them up, sent everybody, traded everybody away off the Denver Broncos. So who are you starting off the Denver Broncos?
So it starts in the middle, right, with those two linebackers, Singleton and Jewell. Singleton, so far, Jewell's missed a game, so he's a little behind, but Singleton's been all right, 55 tackles, 33 solos. Surprisingly enough, the two old guys at safety have been pretty productive, right? Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons. Jackson more so than Simmons. Jackson's second in tackles. He's got the 2 interceptions. So at safety, I think this is a pretty good play for him this week. I would be okay starting him. I'm curious to what Jorge would say about this guy. I'd also start Patrick Surtain if you're in position specific. But Jonathan Cooper, he's got 4 sacks, which is second on the team, I believe. 30 tackles, so he's right up there among the team leaders. Has a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Do you trust him, Jorge? He's not a must start, but as a second tier, third tier, are you trusting him there, or are you just kind of looking at the matchups with him?
So I'm actually trusting him here. I don't think that, with Bakhtiari going out for probably the season, and then the other tackle for the Packers whose name eludes me, which kind of tells you a little something right there. I do like Cooper, his upside, and you hit the nail right on the head for me. So again, going back to shoot the gap on Wednesday this past week, Nate and we had this conversation about edge rushers and what do we look for. And I brought up the fact that one of the things I look for besides pressure rate and win rate is tackle floor. I want to have, edge rusher that has, that higher tackle floor, which raises their fantasy floor. And you throw in the fact that he has been pretty successful 4 sacks on the season. He's steady. He's steady enough where I feel pretty comfortable starting him this week. You're muted, Gator.
Damn rookies! I tell you what. Over here, trying not to cough into the mic, and I put
literally have one job, man.
Listen, stop it. Is it Cousins versus San Francisco or Watson versus Indianapolis, Jorge?
Watson versus Indianapolis.
Ooh.
Sounded like you have a different opinion on that there, Hollywood.
No, I'm not really a different opinion. don't like either one of them.
Well, it sounds like he's got to make a decision here, and I'm kind of leaning on the Watson side of it as well.
Yeah, Cousins is the better quarterback, but the matchup is dictating who you play here because Indy's not very good at all. So I think the better, safer upside is with Watson.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins is probably going to end up in somewhere in that, back end QB1, front end QB2. But I think the better option, if you need that spike week, is going to be Watson with the weapons and going up against Indy. Cousins going against San Francisco. That kind of makes my determination there that defense is just that much more better. And the not having Justin Jefferson does matter. All right, are we good on the Green Bay-Denver game? We are ready to move on to the Chargers at Kansas City. Kansas City favored by 5. 47.5 is the over-under. Derwin James, Justin Watson, and Gilman are out. I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody there, but that's what is here. Is this going to be a smash? You must play Justin Herbert game. Reason I asked that, last year, he threw 78 times in the 2 games, 78 times, 56 of 78, 614 yards, 5 touchdowns against Kansas City. That was just last year. Seems to pick this defense apart. He has very good games every time he plays Kansas City. Are we definitely smashing Herbert with this game?
Yeah. I find it hard to believe that there is not a game where you're not starting Justin Herbert or starting Justin Herbert. The guy just, for fantasy, he's great. He's fantastic.
I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Mahomes, Pacheco, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Kelsey, and Herbert are your must starts in this game. Anybody else that is a must start, Hollywood?
No, I think that's your main ones right there, right? I mean, that pretty much covers your stars. I really like Pacheco this week. I think he's going to have a huge impact.
I wish Nate was here because I don't know the answer to this question he's got in here, but he's got 2 Kansas City wide receivers have over 200 yards receiving. Who are they?
Rice.
Over 200?
Mm-hmm.
For the entire season?
For the season.
Oh, wow.
Rice and...
Yeah, I know who the other one is because I've got him in a bunch of places.
MVS?
It is not MVS.
No.
Who?
It's Justin Watson.
Yeah, and Justin Watson is out in this game.
Yep.
Well, I'll be damned.
Yep. I had him in a ton of places, so that's how I knew that.
that is interesting. Interesting. Just how flex worthy is Palmer and Rice in this game, Hollywood?
Palmer and Rice. I like Rice. Like we were talking about earlier with one of the listener questions, I like him a lot. So, I mean, he's second on the team in catches with 21. Of course, he's behind Kelsey Roney, right? So, yeah, I like him a lot. Who was the other one?
Palmer. Joshua Palmer. Joshua.
Oh, Josh Palmer. Yeah, I like Palmer. It's going to be kind of, I don't know how to say it. I guess it depends on how the game goes, right? I almost want to say if Kansas City can jump out to a big lead and force the Chargers to have to throw all the time, if they can kind of do that early, like if they can get up 14, 17, even 20 points on them early, which is hard to do, I know, but I'm just saying if you can get in that 14, 17 range real quick, then you're going to have to force Chargers to throw a lot, and I think that helps Palmer a great deal. Of course, Keenan Allen's the main target. Mike Williams is hurt, I believe, still. So Palmer's next with 28 catches or 28 targets. So I like him. I think he's a sneaky play, but I would, if I had to choose, Rice and then Palmer. That would be the order.
You agree with that, Jorge?
I'm looking up who Palmer would be lining up against. If I'm reading
that
this,
would be key.
it's serious need, in which case I guess I'd be a little bit concerned about Palmer. I think this is going to be a case where, the old adage, you start your studs. Those are the guys that you want to be confident in. As terms of Palmer or Rice, as far as flex-worthy options, I'm leaning more Rice than Palmer.
Nate, are you
you look at Palmer and you see. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Holly. Go ahead.
Looking at Palmer, if you look at his stats, right, you're kind of enamored with the possibility of what could be, because the last three he's had 4 for 66, 3 for 77, and 4 for 60. So if you're looking just at the stats, you're thinking, okay, if I can get somewhere in that range, 3 or 4 catches for 60, 70 yards, I'll take it, right, with maybe a touchdown. And this has kind of come since Williams has been out. But if he has to face Snead, you've really got to limit your expectations, I think.
Just confirmed Deshaun Watson is active for today. Nate, are you flexing Rice or Palmer? Which one are you flexing first?
Given his history against us, against the Chiefs, that is, I'd probably lean Palmer. Just, sometimes you hate to go with that narrative. That's not the best strategy. Is, well, the last 2 games he's won against Kansas City, he's had 10 targets and 8 targets respectively, and 3 touchdowns combined. But that's, different scenarios. L'Jarius Sneed on the outside is something that didn't happen as much last year. It was really more Sneed lined up in the slot and in the box much more than on the outside. But now they have Trent McDuffie more there. It's interesting because I want to believe it's going to be Rashee Rice, but I think if forced to make a decision, I would go Palmer.
All right, let's dive into the IDP side of it. And I will give the Chiefs to you, Nate. Tell us who we're starting for sure.
Sure. Nick Bolton, you're going to start. I don't love the matchup for Bolton. He's at the bottom of my LB1 just because the Chargers against linebackers hasn't exactly been fruitful, but you're going to start him. Chris Jones, I'm going to start as well. The maybe starts for Kansas City would be Justin Reed. His usage has been pretty consistent in the box. He's definitely seeing enough blitzes to be viable. And the offense, like I said, for the Chargers should be enough that there should be plenty of plays to go around. So I'm going to start that. And then if you really want to get unique on edge rush, George Karlaftis has a motor that doesn't quit. It's just the matchup isn't wonderful.
All right, Hollywood, go ahead with the Chargers side of the IDP world.
Yeah. So this is must starts. Is Derwin James playing or not? Last I saw, he was questioned. If he plays, then yeah, I think you have to start him. But I'm not exactly sure what his injury status is at the moment.
Last I saw, it was not looking good, actually.
That's what I thought. So I think if you have another option, you may want to go away from him. But if he's playing, it's kind of hard not to start him, right? Even with the injury concern. Must start. I don't know that they really have a must start. You're not really saying must start about Khalil Mack, even though he's boom or bust now. I think he's worth starting possibly if you need him. The same would be with maybe Tui Pilato, the rookie. He's had some good games. Kenneth Murray might be their main must start because he's leading the team in tackles with 35. Has an interception, has a sack. So I think you just kind of got to look at your matchups there with them.
Jorge, is Joey Bosa worth starting?
No. I think Nate and I pretty much, body bagged him on Thursday's show. Just, he's just not. There's something there that's just not been there. Whether it's the injuries, whether it's the games played, his pressure rate has not been great this year. He's already missed a couple games. It's getting to the point where it's time to flip him in Dynasty and get what you can. And for example, I know he already played, but I would have taken a shot on Carl Granderson over Joey Bosa this past week. That just tells you where I feel in terms of confidence with Bosa.
Yep.
Very fair. I don't have any Joey Bosa. I have Nick Bosa, but I don't have any Joey Bosa in on my IDP teams. I don't believe. But if I do, time to get him on to somebody else's team.
That's right.
All right. Anything else we need to add with the Kansas City LA Chargers game, Nate?
No, and forgive me. Did we mention like Eric Kendricks coming back is interesting? Did one of you guys say his name? I'm sorry.
Nope.
Nope.
Kansas City, knowing the way they diversify their targets, a lot of them are into the area of space, which usually means like Eric Kendricks, who has that closing speed still a little bit. It's losing, it's lacking, going away. But Kendricks, at least against linebackers, Kansas City has been decently generous. So I think that would lean Kendricks more than Kenneth Murray just by a slight hair. But Eric Kendricks is no longer the LB1 that you must start week in and week out.
With that, we will move on to the highest over-under on the week, and that is Miami at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is favored by 3, over-under of 51.5. Reed Blankenship is the only one that is out of note. Is this going to be as easy as it's Miami because their secondary for Philly is just depleted a little bit there, Jorge?
I don't think so. Yes, the secondary is banged up, but it's really up to this offensive line to withstand the onslaught that Philadelphia is going to be bringing to his way along the defensive line. So I don't think this is going to be a complete dominating performance by the Dolphins now.
You're starting Tua, you're starting Hurts, you're starting Swift, you're starting Mostert, you're starting Waddle, you're starting Hill, you're starting Smith, you're starting Brown, you're starting Goddard.
Are you starting Dallas Goddard?
Well,
let me look into, because up until a couple of weeks ago, he hadn't done jack. You know what? Let's take a look.
He's still tight end 10 on the season.
He's so going back to week 1, 0, and this isn't half PPR. 0, 5.2, 6.6, 3.5, 21.7, then back down to 6.7. Let me ask you a question. Would you start Kyle Pitts, Darren Waddle, Kmet, Musgrave, Meyer, Everett? Would you start most of those over Goddard? I could make the case that you would. So I don't know if Dallas Goddard is necessarily a must start tight end. Even now, I know what you're going to say. It's Bimageddon. I get it.
No,
but
why would you have all those guys are all tight end ones on the year that you just named?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Goddard fits right into that. He's a tight end one on the for overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I had both of them, if I had Pitts and Goddard, but I shouldn't force people's draft into a narrative, but I don't think somebody's going to draft Goddard and Pitt. But I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Jorge. I'm not trying to knock on that. I just don't know.
I still think he's if you have him on your roster, he is a must start. Just I truly believe he is. But my question is there a chance, because of the pass rush for Philly and because the secondary is depleted, dare I say it, Durham Smythe, because it's by Mageddon, is there a chance you're playing him even in a flex?
No,
Nate?
He's had so many opportunities the entire season. I mean, you couldn't fit another reason into why he should be viable in terms of what he's done on the season. Here's his route participation on the season: 91%, 97%, then 25%, then 68%, back to 91%, down to 66%. When he had 90%, he was seeing 10 to 15% of the targets. That's realistically tight end, like between tight end 15 and tight end 20 overall. And since then, he's had no higher than, he had a tight end 19 finish in a full point PPR in week 4. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty, I'd say fluky, because the other ones have been tight end 47, tight end 40. Even in this, heavy bye week, I just can't see enough volume or any volume going his direction. I think he's strictly for blocking only.
Very, very fair. Hollywood, Jeff Wilson returns this week. How much does he eat into Raheem Mostert's work against the Philly D? Would you even consider flexing Jeff Wilson?
Not really. I don't think. I think Mostert's filled in nicely for A-Chain since he's been out. There's always a chance that he could steal some carries here and there, but I would look for better options.
Jorge, automatically, like I said a minute ago, you're starting Hill, you're starting Waddle. Which one is going to be the one that receives the better matchup this week with Philly in that D? Which one are you starting? If you have both of them on your team, I know you're probably starting both of them. Which one of you starting over the other in terms of matchup?
I don't really. It's Hill, and it could be the worst matchup, and I'm still starting Hill.
Very fair. Very fair. Nate, is it same with you? You're starting Hill over Waddle, period, the end. I don't care who the matchup is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be Hill's just going to be running all over the place, 350 yards today.
He's on pace for 2,300 yards receiving in season. Now, granted, I know the pace conversation is never fun to have, but there's nothing stopping. No, that shouldn't even.
He's through 6 games, 814 yards. It's very likely that he will be the fastest to 1,000 for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk IDP. Philadelphia side of the ball. I'll give that to you, Jorge. Who is your must starts over there?
Jalen Carter. Let's start with that one. Let's start with the less obvious one in defensive tackle leagues. He's definitely somebody whose pressures, up until a few weeks ago, I want to say he was right on par with Aaron Donald. I haven't checked last week, but definitely has the upside there. Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, I think are must starts. I guess, going back to Nakobe Dean is a tough one for me because I need to see it. I need to see it consistently before I can start making him a must start, but I can understand if you're, hurting at linebacker, especially this week, why you would chase the upside there. On the other side for the ball, I'm sorry, did you ask me for both sides for IDP or
go right ahead? If you've got something to add into it, go right ahead. And we'll let Hollywood and Nate rebuttal you.
For the Dolphins, Christian Wilkins, especially trying to stop the run against Philadelphia. The big question here is Andrew Van Ginkel or Jalen Phillips. We saw Phillips return to the lineup last week, granted on limited snaps. They're kind of like working him back into the situation. But if that continues to be the case, then David Long, I actually like Bradley Chubb, and Hollywood and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, that I do like the tackle floor that Bradley Chubb has had this season on top of his pressures. So, I would say Bradley Chubb in his fantasy production, I'd say he's a must start this week. Javon Holland, although his box snaps have been going down the past 4 games kind of considerably compared to where they were, which I want to say was first in all of the NFL for safeties for the first 4 weeks of the season. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I don't think so. Guys, did I miss anybody?
No, I mean, I don't know if you like the rotation on the defensive line for Miami. You can pretty much insert any of the names, and who knows, from Sweat to Reddick, etc. But the one I'll highlight, I guess you touched on it briefly, is David Long, just simply because David Long is man, I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to say he's top 3 because I don't know if he's 1 or 2, but he's top 3 in PFF's run defense grade. And the Eagles, despite the fact as high flying as they may be, they're the NFL's second most rush heavy team. And so when you have a guy like David Long who's that good against the run, something tells me he's going to see his play increase. Even though that what we saw earlier is that when Jalen Phillips was in, Van Ginkel slid to the inside, pushing David Long out of guaranteed snaps, and then Jerome Baker was losing snaps, and then Baker was getting it back. Very confusing. But if real football talk, David Long should be on the field more to keep the run play at bay. And if that's the case, then I love David Long in a to double-digit tackles. I don't want to say guaranteed, but pretty high hope for that.
Hollywood, is Nakobe Dean somebody that we're sliding back into starting lineups yet after missing missing 4 weeks with the injury? Only played 32 snaps last week, but it sounds like, we had a full practice all week. Sounds like they're wanting to get him back more involved. Is he somebody that you can trust to put in your starting lineup as a middle linebacker in that Philadelphia D?
Absolutely not. No, I'm not. I'm like Jorge. I've got to see it. It's just not been there so far, and he's been hurt, and I really wasn't high on him to begin with. So for me, I'm out on him.
Nate, you with that?
I'm not out on Nakobe Dean, no, because on a per snap basis, he's been an LB1, but that problem is per snap is
right.
That's a weighted figure when you don't have as many snaps as many of the other solidified linebackers. I'm definitely in a wait and see approach with them in terms of, I think that down the stretch, because I don't trust Zach Cunningham or Nicholas Morrow to be someone that's going to take snaps away from him. I think they eat into each other, and we see Nakobe Dean trend up to a 90% plus workload. And 90% workload on that Eagles offense or defense should be LB2 safety. Should be. Anything
you want to add on Nakobe Dean, Jorge?
Nope.
Stay away from Nakobe Dean, Jorge said.
This week, yeah.
Last game is tomorrow night. It is San Francisco favored by 7 at Minnesota, over under of 47. We don't know everybody that's actually going to be out right now, but who is trending to be out, or who is questionable, I guess, is the more important one, Nate.
Well, we know Debo's out.
So that's
out. A pretty big one. Game time wise, Christian McCaffrey. Here's a big one too that kind of went under the radar when everybody's talking about San Francisco is Trent Williams. You lose Trent Williams, and all of a sudden, it doesn't change that much. I think San Francisco still wins this ball game, but it has a lot of effects all the way down the line. A lot of trickle down effect.
Yep. Purdy was not great last week, and I think a lot of that has to do with Trent Williams. A lot of that has to do with CMC not being there for a big majority of the game. Still leads the NFL in QBR, potentially without CMC and Debo. Again, like Trent Williams as well. Against a soft Vikings D, How confident are you in starting Brock Purdy this week, Jorge?
I'm not. You mentioned the deficiencies if Trent Williams is out, Nate. What does that do to the offensive line? And let's not forget Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He's a blitz-heavy coordinator. You take away one of your best pass blockers, and now you throw in a blitz-heavy defensive scheme. That kind of worries me for Brock Purdy's upside.
Yeah, Nate Cousins' first game without Justin Jefferson. Vikings scored 12 points and averaged 4 yards per play.
Yeah.
We had the question a little bit ago, was it Cousins or was it Watson's? I'm going to ask you, is it Cousins or is it Ritter?
Oh, man. I still think I trust in Cousins more. I trust more in Cousins and that offense to at least lean on him than I do Ritter and that offense to be in his hands. Like I could see a Ritter game switch to a Bijan, Tyler Algier game real fast. But man, I'm hoping they get things right without Jefferson and it's not great. Not great, Bob. But
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. But I'll take Cousins. I wasn't here. Wouldn't you guys? Was it Cousins or Watson?
It was Watson. I think all around it was Watson. And a lot of it had to do with the San Francisco D.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that makes me worry about the same situation there with that. But last 2 games removed, I still think that I trust Cousins more than I trust Ritter.
Hollywood, if there is no CMC this week, are you Team Mitchell or are you Team Mason? Or is it a 50-50 split?
I think it could be 50-50. Is more the likely thing. I think I prefer Mitchell more, but I think Mason has the better receiving upside. So with that, I think that kind of divides it, right? That keeps it right close to 50-50, I think.
Yeah. It's so hard to tell because Shanahan's come out and said that they are, 100% behind Mitchell, and then they give him 2 carries. Of course, it's a negative 8 yards or negative, whatever. And then it's all CMC or nobody in that backfield for the most part, it seems. Jorge, given all the buys, are you comfortable starting Madison as your RB2 versus San Francisco when you look at what Jerome Ford did last week? Just over 80 yards, no touchdown, but you're still Madison has looked pretty decent since they brought Cam Akers in. And again, we're talking about the San Francisco run D. Are you comfortable starting Madison as your RB2 this week?
Yeah, I am. Like you just hit the nail on the head. His production has gone up. The matchup kind of favors him in this case. I think the Vikings, if they want to stay in this game, if they want to keep their games competitive for the rest of the season, and that's kind of the big if there, right? Wink, wink. It's through the ground, not through the air, consistently. So yeah, I think they're going to feature Madison more this week.
Nate, who is the better wide receiver option? Again, going to the matchups, who's the better wide receiver option this week for fantasy purposes with Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne?
I'm always going to lean Jordan Addison. I think his involvement in that offense has grown each week. Granted, not having Jefferson does change a lot in terms of scheme and situation, but I think that the one thing that doesn't change, I think that KJ Osborne will not earn more targets, and I think Jordan Addison has the ability to earn more targets, and as targets are earned, I think that will lean him, and eventually it'll be him and Hawkinson. I think that will monopolize the majority of those targets myself.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question honestly was because you looked at last week, first game without Justin Jefferson, they both received 5 targets each.
Yeah,
KJ Osborne caught 5, Addison caught 3. And I believe that's going to be probably it's probably going to be pretty even going down. It's just going to, the rest of the season for them as far as targets. I do believe that you're right. Addison does tend to catch more of those targets for more yardage. And then of course, Hawkinson is actually going to be more involved as well, like he should be. Go ahead.
No, I was just say it's extremely comparable. And like they both had the same percentage of air yardage. They both had the same percentage of, they both ran or had the same percentage of target share. Both ran, honestly, the 100% of the routes. That's the most impressive thing, or the most important thing. But I think Addison has, the touchdown, of course, but then that air yardage advantage over KJ Osborne gives me the slight bump.
Not to mention, Shavarius Ward should be on Addison this week, and that's not necessarily a good matchup for him either. So I'm kind of with you there on the KJ Osborne bump there.
All right, Hollywood, I'm going to give you the Vikings right here. Who is the IDP side of the ball? What are we doing? Who's a must start?
You got to start Cameron Bynum, right? I mean, he has been phenomenal this year. Leads the team with 60 tackles, forced fumble, 2 TFLs, 2 pass deflections. I mean, his tackle numbers have been through the roof, because 41 of those have been solos, which is 68%. So that's good. Harrison Smith, I think, is a must play, but you're seeing him play more in the box, right? He's got 3 sacks already on the year, so which is different from kind of what we're used to seeing. I mean, we're used to seeing him in the box, but it's how they're blitzing him has been a little different from what we've seen. Of course, you're starting Danielle Hunter. He's just a beast. I saw earlier before we jumped on, there's teams inquiring about him, looking for pass rushers. So I think those are your must starts. I don't like Jordan Hicks as a must start, but I think you do start him, right? 53 tackles is pretty good. Interception. So I do like Josh Metellus. If you're looking for like a low end safety 2, high safety 3, Josh Metellus is just about as solid and dependable as you can find right now. I mean, he's week to week, he's had 6 or more tackles every single week. And he had 8 last week against Chicago with sacks. So he's quietly becoming someone that I put in my lineups each and every week and say, I don't have to worry about it because I know he's going to give me 6, 7, 8 tackles. Does he give me a lot outside of that? Not a whole lot, but I'm okay with that. So, other than that, I mean, Ivan Pace is not a must start, but he's playable. Harrison Phillips had a stretch there where he was just dominating, so I could see you playing him in position-specific leagues. He would be a decent play, but outside of that, I think it's Bynum, Smith, and Hunter is your must starts.
Nate, you correct the spelling on or my pronunciation on this, but is it DJ Wanham?
Yeah, DJ Wanham.
If Trent Williams is out,
yeah, he moves up. I mean, I hated him at first. He's a sit in my start sit article because of that matchup, and then Trent Williams picks up the injury during practice, and all flips that on its head, and then he looked good last week in replacement. Marcus Davenport, who got hurt. Wanham filled in, had good win rate, good pressure rate, or at least in limited sample, of course. Let's not get too carried away about that ability. But I'm not starting DJ Wanham, but it's a name to consider, like Jorge alluded to. This is a very blitz-heavy defense, and the way they do play, between the stunts and the blitz in general, any one of their outside edge rushers or even linebackers, for that sake, have an opportunity to make an impact. And getting acclimated with new offensive linemen is always can be a learning curve, especially for a team that has relied so heavily for so long on one particular bookend tackle.
I'm waiting for you to drop the Marcus Davenport option.
For what? Because he got hurt?
Is he hurt? Is he not playing today?
Marcus Davenport got put on IR. He got hurt last week in the
What?
first quarter.
I did not know that. How about that?
Yeah, that's why he had 2 pressures, if I'm not mistaken, in the first 2 drives, and then got hurt, and he's on the IR now.
I feel like a dick. So
Don't feel like a dick. No, just take victory laps on ignorance and injuries. It's fine. Yeah. The IL now can stand for ignorance lap. Take one, Jorge.
There you go.
Let's do this. Let's let Jorge take a victory lap while he's telling us who is his must starts for San Francisco in the IDP side.
So Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga is an interesting case because when he's crowding the line of scrimmage, which I think he will today, just because I think the Vikings are going to kind of emphasize the running game. He has definite upside, but he has been playing more free safety than he's been playing more in coverage, I should say. So that he's borderline must start. But those players, let's see, I said Bosa, Greenlaw, Warner, and Hufanga for me are the must starts there.
I dropped Hufanga.
You traded me Hufanga.
I dropped him in a different league altogether.
Ah.
Wow.
I asked Nate about Hufanga last week. I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, Nate. Mm-hmm. And then he turns around against Cleveland and has 76 snaps. He was on the field just about every.
He's on the play. He never takes time off. He just that's the problem. He plays 76 snaps and gives you in this game against Cleveland. He matched his tackle volume from the previous 3 weeks combined in one game. He has a tackle rate of like 5% on the season. And the only 2 games that he scored more than like 5 or 6 fantasy points has been as a result of an interception. So I don't care for Hufanga. I think that he's a splash play waiting to happen, and he's exciting at times, but not when he's playing 76 snaps, 70 snaps, etc. I mean, that was a weird game for them. They typically, San Francisco as a whole isn't the team that's going to give you 70 snaps per game defense. They're usually closer to, I wanted to say they were the 3rd lowest defensive snaps per game team in the NFL, but I don't want to give bad information.
I mean, I think it's pretty close to that. They're top 5, I'm sure, because they're not on the field a ton. They're that good.
Yeah, no.
Jorge, is Randy Gregory somebody that we maybe not starting, but is that somebody that we're keeping an eye on to see what the usage is going to be in that San Francisco defensive line?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on. I'm like not glued to the TV watching every single snap, but I'll read about it. I'll do my research on him. But look, he came out week 1 or his first week for San Francisco, played pretty well. That's encouraging. So yeah, I'll keep tabs.
All right. Is it Cody Barton, Ernest Jones, or Jordan Brooks? Sit 1.
I'll sit.
Brooks?
Yeah, that's who I'm going to sit. I don't like it.
I think I sit Brooks. I don't like that, but I think that's who I sit.
Yeah, agreed.
Everybody is sitting Jordan Brooks.
The only other option, it's not the only other option. It's Ernest Jones is Hollywood, and we've all talked about him having injury designation going into the game. If there was a chance that bulky knee of his acts up, you're risking less. But I think that pure ceiling play, Jordan Brooks has the lowest ceiling of the 3. Floor, I guess that's Ernest Jones with injury.
All right, Nate, any last-minute updates that the fantasy owners need to know before they set their lineups?
I haven't seen anything. Kareem Hunt is active. We might have said that already, but I can't think of anything else right now, man. I think that we've done 180 minutes worth of synopsis pretty well.
Hollywood, anything you want to add?
Just other than if you're into the player prop betting, some of those stack totals are still at a quarter of a sack, so they've not changed yet, but I'll look for them to any moment. So,
All right, Jorge, anything you want to add? If not, go ahead and tell them where they can find you and what you got going on.
Nope. Think 3 hours to cover every single game did the trick. So thank you all for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at Jorge B. Edwards. Rather you follow at Fantasy and Frames. Check out all of our content on fantasyframes.com, here on YouTube, TikTok, all the social media channels. We got you covered.
Hollywood, tell them what you got going on. Hurry up. We got
I didn't do
lineups
it.
set, man.
All my stuff is over at IDPNation.com. You can follow it there. I do rankings for Fantasy and Frames. You can see them on their website. So go check those out.
Nate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at name Markham. Shoot the Gap Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central. And then here every Sunday morning from 8 a.m. Central to 11 a.m. Central.
Absolutely. I'll give you real quick. I want to give you the rundown. On Tuesdays, we are at 7:30. We have our Waiver Wire show with myself and Zach Pulowski. On Wednesday, we start at 8 o'clock with with Dynasty 365. 9 o'clock is Fourth and Frames. 10 o'clock, like Nate just said, is Shoot the Gap. On Thursdays, we are doing Mailbag. Is that correct there, Jorge? Is it Thursday nights? Thursday nights at 7 p.m. And then, of course, right here on Sunday mornings, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment on the show. We definitely have these three guys jump into the comments, between now and the 1 o'clock hour, even the 4 o'clock hour. If you have any more start sits, I'll keep an eye on it. I will let them know. They will absolutely get in there and comment you back, or you can just hit them on Twitter. The show account is at Fantasy in Frames. You have at Nate Markham, at Hollywood Titan, at Jorge B. Edwards, and I am at Fantasy J77. Until next week, fantasy football is a game of strategy, skill, and luck. May your roster shine bright, your instincts be on point, and your predictions reign supreme. We are out.